Okay, the Joint Legislative Ad Hoc Committee on Family Court Orders is back in session. And for those of you that are standing at the podium, if you could kind of move aside so that this young lady can step up. All right, if you would you please give your name, who you represent, if it's somebody other than yourself?
Yes.
And it appears that you might be a minor, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right, if you would please get as close to the microphone as you can. And I'd like to get your name.
My name is Maggie, but I'm happy to share my legal name in private.
Okay, that's fine.
Good afternoon, senators and members of the committee. Thank you for your work to protect children and families in Arizona, especially in the face of our family court system crisis. I'm 15 years old, an Arizona native, and my brother and I have been trapped in the family court nightmare for most of our lives. I'm an AB student, a member of Mayor's Youth Council, and I actively participate in choir, theater, and the performing arts. I also volunteer in my community and serve in leadership roles at my church. I care deeply about fairness, service, and doing what's right. I'm here today because I believe the family court system in Arizona needs to start listening. I believe that they need to start listening to children, and especially teenagers like me, who have lived with the consequences of the family court's decisions. Throughout my life, I've been told by professionals that as a child my voice doesn't matter. This has made me feel like property and not a human being with rights. It has never made sense to me. I am old enough to lead, to speak publicly, and to serve others, but I'm told that I'm not old enough to say where I feel safe or which parent I'm more emotionally connected to. In my own case, my wishes were ignored even when I tried to speak up. When I resisted going with a parent that I did not feel safe with due to abuse, I was threatened by law enforcement with juvenile detention. I was physically removed from a vehicle by my abuser while the police stood by watching me. In that moment, I was left bruised physically and emotionally. After that, I lost time with the parent that I felt safest with. I was told because I resisted an exchange with my aggressive parent, I could not see the parent that I preferred. This was supposed to be in my best interest, but it felt more like a punishment for telling the truth about my feelings and my needs. Now my 5-year-old half-brother is caught in the same nightmare. He is placed with a harmful parent who has very concerning behaviors. We were given different custody schedules and made our time limited. Recently, we were separated entirely due to supervised visitation. This happened after my brother confided in me, his big sister, someone he trusts, about his horrific experiences. When we speak out, all it does is make our living arrangements worse. Because of that, now we only see each other a few hours a month. We are incredibly close and we want to be together. Being separated is heartbreaking and absolutely not in our best interest. What hurts the most is knowing that a parent who has always kept us safe, the one who provides stability, love, home-cooked meals, emotional support, and helps us thrive in every era of our lives, was the one that we were taken from. And I am not asking you to make decisions about my personal case or my brother's today, but what I'm asking is that you hear my voice and the voice of other children like me. We have lived the outcomes of family court decisions made without our input, and we are still carrying the consequences. Family court has caused us immense pain. Children deserve to be heard in a way that truly matters. When we speak up about our concerns for our safety, we should be protected. We should not be punished. Our voices and our safety and our emotional well-being must be part of the legal process. It should not be an afterthought. Thank you for listening. I hope my words inspire you to enact a children's choice law that will protect children and finally give them the voice that they deserve.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you.
Members, any questions for Maggie?
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
salute your courage, young lady.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Christine Morrison.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Christine Morrison, and I'm from Michigan. I am court docket 95-4609 DM. I wrote the book Judicial Criminals, The Greatest Fraud Upon American Society, America's Legal System. My website is judicialcriminal.com. Family court judges are above the law and order whatever they like, and you are coerced into agreements. I was precluded any legal remedy with up to 10 appeals filed, an attorney malpractice trial, and three motions are still under advisement. Non-custodial parents are criminalized, falsely arrested, silenced, looted of their assets, homes, possession, and life savings for parental rights. My case starts with a settlement agreement. An original and 2 amendments were entered without my consent, without my signature, and it was wrong per the court transcript. There was no property settlement. There was just custody and accurate financial information. The opposing attorney in the attorney malpractice trial said, because her then attorney has made prior errors which precluded her from having visitation with her daughter, she couldn't be with her daughter. That's it exactly. Defense attorney stipulated on the record the clients did not consent to the original or either amendments. I was awarded $220,000 for the attorney malpractice trial. The trial cost more than $220,000. The attorney appealed it. The appeals court reversed it. The appeals court awarded him $36,000 in costs. That attorney then liquidated $80,000 from my retirement accounts. I also didn't show up for a creditor's exam, and the court issued a warrant for my arrest contingent upon me paying the $36,000. That was back in the early 2000s. Child support. In 2019, Minnesota issued that the administrative child support process is unconstitutional. During the attorney malpractice trial, we had subpoenaed IRS corporate returns that showed in excess of $2 million. My ex reported $17,000 to the friend of the court, $500 a week, and his attorney testified in open court he believed his client wasn't submitting accurate income. The IRS subpoenaed corporate return trial exhibits are in the court and the attorney malpractice trial. Judge number 2 was the Chief Circuit Court judge.
And, excuse me, ma'am, this is in Michigan, correct?
Michigan,
Okay.
Macomb County Circuit Court.
Okay.
Judge number 2, who I was in front of, Chief Massaroni, for 8 months after the child support was entered against me, I became medically disabled. I asked the court, the friend of the court, for over 8 months for a modification. I was denied. In September, 8 months later, the opposing counsel went in on an ex parte show cause order against my family. On 9/1, orders came out for a seizure, sealing, inventory, setting aside a quick claim deed to a third party, and immediate possession of my home. On 9/2, a lien was put on the title. On 9/23, there was an ex parte motion requesting a court order to sell my home. On 9/22, my then new attorneys, 2, filed a motion for abatement of the child support, a rehearing of the 9/1, 9/2 orders, and a disqualification of the Chief Circuit Court judge. That judge denied disqualifying himself. The motion was then reheard in November. Long story short, I was made homeless for over 8 weeks. I did get my property back, but it cost me more money than what the property was worth. And even when I got my property back, I went to file a police report for all the contents missing, and the police told me to go file with the court. Judge number 3 violated federal law and assessed against me $33,000 in retroactive child support. She also tagged on over $12,000 in attorney fees. On January 12th, the full cash bond was posted. My attorney filed an appeal for reversible error, and the next day she issued a bench warrant for my arrest. In the meantime, I had bounty hunters after me. They came to my home asking for my whereabouts, went to my neighbors and pulled a gun on them. That's what you are subjected to. With the court orders taken under advisement, the settlement agreement that should be void and null. I have asked Michigan legislators for decades now for legislation and to void the settlement agreement. There's a 2005 case in Michigan, Logan versus Logan, where the Court of Appeals said that
You got 2 minutes, ma'am.
the trial court erred when it failed to enforce the settlement agreement because it's American contract law. It's a contract between two parties that they can't not enforce, but they did that to me. And there have been many attorneys that have filed to the U.S. Supreme Court for no remedy in law, and they're all dismissed. We have filed to the International Criminal Court. No legislation is going to correct this national crisis, and it's all because of one thing. It is called Title 4-D, and Melanie Cummings in 2002 wrote to and testified to the Senate in New Jersey, the defrauding of the hardworking American taxpayer, welfare reform, and the role of the family court. And Renee Beaker, who was chair of Michigan Now, stated, good fit mothers are losing custody in 70% of contested cases, along with their homes, professional licenses, and life savings. The third judge threatened that if I did not show up on the show cause for the third appeal, that they would suspend my occupational licenses. So you have absolutely no rights, no right to a remedy in this court, and it's all because of the Title 4-D funding. What people don't know is this year alone, forensic psychiatrist Bandy Lee has said that the reimbursement is between 50 to 170 billion per year. So all the state courts go back to the Title 4-D fund, and they're reimbursed money, billions, all of them. The biological parents now are basically like the Cash for Kids scandal in Pennsylvania. We are slaves to this system for the Title 4-D that they've been collecting for since the 70s.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. Members, any questions for Ms. Morrison? Okay, ma'am, thank you for your testimony. Next we have Haley. Haley in the room? Hopefully there's only one Haley. Haley, going once? Going twice? Oh, sorry. You were behind. I'm sorry? She was.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Hi, Haley. If you would please give your name for the record, and if you're representing somebody other than yourself, please tell us that.
Yes.
Also, are you a minor?
I am not.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
gotta ask.
My name is Haley Worrell. I'm 27 years old, a wife, a mother of two, and as of this Wednesday, a law school graduate.
Congratulations.
Thank you. While this is a time of celebration for my family, it's also a moment of deep reflection and sadness because of the reason I went to law school is rooted in tragedy. In 2017, my oldest son was medically kidnapped by the Arizona Department of Child Safety. What followed was a cascade of systemic failures that led to my husband being wrongly convicted of child abuse, and he is now serving a 12-year sentence for a crime that never happened.
On November 12th, 2017, my husband and I, at only 19 years old, brought our 4-month-old son to the emergency room in Prescott, Arizona. He had woken up with a swollen arm. Before any x-rays were done, the emergency room doctor came in, assessed, and said that his arm was broken, and immediately contacted the police and DCS. From that moment forward, everything that happened was marked by a rush of judgment. The doctor refused to perform any other tests other than a full-body x-ray, tests that would have shown our son suffered from vitamin D deficient infantile rickets and hypermobility Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, both which he's since been diagnosed with. The initial full-body x-ray uncovered 4 rib fractures at various stages of healing, an arm fracture, and a fracture in his wrist. With one simple blood test, they could have discovered the explanation for the unexplained fractures and treated him like we anticipated when we had brought him in. The detective and the DCS investigator interrogated my 19-year-old husband for over an hour before he finally told him, "You and your wife are his main caretakers. It's either you or your wife going to prison for this. If you want your son and wife to go home safely, you need to tell us what you did." My husband falsely confessed out of fear for our safety, a threat which was meaningless as they placed him into foster care immediately after, despite his coerced confession. The family court judge implied during our first hearing that due process wasn't required in her courtroom when she stated that this is not criminal court. We do not need proof to take your child away. A gag order was placed
I'm sorry, when did this case happen?
2017 to 2018.
The name of the judge?
Judge Anna Young.
I'm sorry.
Anna Young?
Okay. I'll send her a copy of the Constitution.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Please proceed.
A gag order was placed on us so that we could not speak out during this whole process. My parents, while gathering character letters to try to get placement of our son, was threatened with contempt of court because they were telling people that he was in foster care. A CASA representative screamed in fear upon seeing my husband out on bond during our first child-family team meeting. Already labeling him an abuser with no trial or evidence, there was never a presumption of innocence for him. DCS caseworkers told me that I could have my son back if I left my husband and testified against him. They asked me to abandon my husband, that I had known and trusted since I met at church when we were 10 years old, and to testify differently than I believed in exchange for my son, something morally I could not do. Our family advocate summed it up early on when she told us, "You are not getting your son back. He is a healthy baby boy. He is adoptable." Our caseworker, with others during our case, posed proudly in t-shirts that they made for a photograph that said "Professional Kidnappers" on the front and on the back, "Do you know where your children are?" This was never about protecting a child. It was about preserving a narrative, their false narrative, and when the system decides what it wants to believe, truth becomes irrelevant.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Was that photo
Yes.
out on the internet?
Yes. It got national attention.
Oh, it certainly did. It got my attention.
Yes.
If you would, could you please see to it that staff receives a link or a copy of that photo?
Yes, I absolutely can.
Because I think that needs to be a part of the record.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, you have 3 minutes left, okay?
Okay. My parents weren't granted custody for 11 months, despite being under the protection of the Indian Child Welfare Act, because they believed in our innocence. Only after passing multiple home studies, psychological evaluations, and making degrading sacrifices like agreeing to remove all the photos of my husband off of their walls, and having no personal contact with me or my husband, were they even able to get temporary custody of him. Even while in foster care, our son sustained 2 more fractures, but the focus remained on us, parents who had no contact with him at the time the fractures occurred. We complied with every demand that they assigned to me: parenting classes, counseling, psychological evaluations, drug testing, everything in the reunification plan. My husband wasn't allowed to participate, and a no contact order was placed between our son and him, so he was not able to have supervised visitation like I was. We paid out of pocket for him to do everything that they assigned me. We paid for him to do still, so that they would see that we were committed to fighting for our son. And still, after jumping through their hoops with flying colors and no indication from any of their chosen professionals of an inclination for either one of us to be abusers, they denied us reunification with our son. At our severance trial, supervised visitation workers cried on the stand while testifying to my abilities to be a loving mother. It did not sway the judge. Before the trial, we were waiting for an expert report confirming our son's injuries stem from the metabolic bone condition, and the judge would not delay the trial to await for the evidence. The trial proceeded anyway before my husband's criminal trial and against the advice and opinion of the Foster Care Review Board, who recommended waiting for the outcome of the trial before proceeding with the severance trial. Because of this, he had to plead the fifth to every question. He obliged on every question except for one. They asked, "Did you hurt your son?" And he said, "No, I did not hurt my son." There are countless wrongs that occurred in our involvement in the family court system that I could name, but that would take all night, so I will leave you with one. Our final caseworker, the only one who had actually come to our home, had spoken to us. He assured us that he believed the truth would prevail. He listened to us, talked to us, and for once, someone believed in us. But on the stand, he testified that my husband was an abuser and that I was a danger for supporting him. We emailed him after we were shocked and betrayed, and his response was this: "Haley, I appreciate your comments. I do not believe there is anything I can say to help you understand my role. How I feel about you and your family is very different than how I was required to testify as a child safety specialist. Some of us DCS employees find ourselves in very difficult positions. If you hate me because of the trial, you are completely justified." That is the system in one single sentence. Even those who know the truth are required to lie under oath to protect the system in their rush of judgment, and not the child. Our son was not abused by his parents, but he was abused by the system that stole him from a loving home and by a system that robbed him of his father. He is still being victimized every weekend when instead of waking up with his dad, he only has 4 hours in a prison visitation room before crying and hugging his daddy goodbye. Even more than that, our youngest son, who was not taken from us, has become yet another victim of the system who was robbed of his father and moments with his father. While he took his first breath in this world, his dad was sitting in a prison cell waiting for the prison guard to let him make a 15-minute phone call to check on his wife and son's safety after birth. Both of our children suffer every day without their dad, and because a procedural bar is so high for appeals, we are still left without relief. I went through 6 years of law school to help make a change in the system, and I am not in the position yet to make that change, but you are. Today, you have the power to take the first step towards accountability and justice for Arizona families like mine, for Arizona children like mine, who wish at every wishing well to find that we find for their daddy to come home. Please be the voices for the families who are, who were, and will be silenced, and to ensure no other child becomes collateral damage in the system that's supposed to protect them. Thank you.
Members, any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Fink?
I guess I'm just kind of flabbergasted that after the diagnosis of the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is very much well documented, that not everything was reversed. Can you explain a little bit why they did not take that into consideration?
Yeah. So it actually just went in front of the criminal conviction went in front of the Court of Appeals, and because of the procedural bar of how they view newly discovered evidence, it has to be newly discovered means that it cannot have been brought up in trial. And so to them, the issue of metabolic bone conditions was brought up at trial by the state's experts, and they had said that he did not have any. Even though it was different kinds of testing, they said that the issue of genetic testing had been discussed at trial, so it was not new evidence. So it was a procedural bar. They said that it would make a difference, and that it was, during oral arguments, they said that it would make a difference and that it was relevant, but in their opinion, it was not, it couldn't count because it was brought up at trial.
I'm flabbergasted. Anyway,
Another question? You done?
I'm done.
Thank you.
Hold on. I wanted to give my colleagues first bite at this apple.
Absolutely.
Have you examined, I'm not, at the risk of provoking a lawsuit, have you given any thought to an action against the physician who failed to recognize that your son had such a malady?
We've definitely thought about that, and that is something that we're working through right now. We've focused solely on trying to get my husband home to his babies, but now that we've we got our son in a safe place with my parents and that I'm able to live with them. Our focus right now is on him, and then eventually we will think about all of this for the, my grandparents' drained retirement or our sold house to try to cover all the legal bills. That's something that we can think of in the future.
So tell me a little bit more about that, if you don't mind, ma'am.
The
You had to
financial
sell your
drain.
house, your financial ruin, it sounds like.
Yeah, my grandparents, thankfully for them, thankfully for us, had saved up quite a retirement, and it's almost all gone. My grandparents had to go through a cancer treatment for my grandma and almost didn't have enough because they had used all of it on lawyer funds. My parents had been taking money out of their 401k and having to be penalized for that, of course. We had to sell our home to pay for lawyer bills as well, and it just doesn't stop. Experts, all of that costs money.
So I want to make sure that I heard what I think I heard. That Judge Young
Yes.
told you that you have no civil rights in her courtroom?
The very first courtroom, they sat us all down and they asked us if we had anything to say.
And this was on the record?
Yes,
or
this was on the record.
conference?
This was on the record.
Okay.
The first attorney, the attorney for DCS, he didn't have anything to say. The guardian at Lidum, she stood up. She said normally she would move to sever a case like this immediately, but she wanted to dig up some more dirt on the mother, me, the 19-year-old. And so being shocked, I didn't say anything. My husband was next, and he said, "Your Honor, I didn't hurt my son." And that is when she made the comment, "Mr. Worrell, this is not like criminal court. I do not have to prove that you did anything to take your son away."
And of course, you now know otherwise.
Yes.
Okay. I guess the next question I have for you. Did the court itself or representatives of the court attempt to turn you against your husband?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Haley, if you would, please don't. Do you need to run off? I know
No.
it's a trip up the hill.
No,
No?
I'm good.
All right, I would like to have you speak to our staff so that we can get your information. I would like to get a copy,
Absolutely.
a transcript of your court case
Absolutely.
to include in the record. That is absolutely reprehensible, that a judge in this state would tell somebody that they have no civil rights.
Yep.
But I don't want to jump to a conclusion. Perhaps you misheard. Perhaps she misspoke. Perhaps that didn't happen. As you know, part of legal doctrine is if
Absolutely.
it ain't on paper, if it's not in the four corners,
Absolutely.
it didn't happen.
Yep.
Okay? All right. Thank you, Haley.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate you coming up.
Thank you.
Mr. Schultz, are you still in the room? If you don't mind, I've got a question about what we've heard from Ms. Haley.
Yes, sir.
Would you say that this is an example of alienation by the court itself?
Absolutely. And this happens frequently as well, right? We view parental alienation as the wording, it's parent, right? However, when the
If you would
state
get as close as you can to the microphone.
when the state assumes the parenting role, right? Here they are alienating a parent from a child.
Because it shocks me that the court or some out-of-control state agency would demand that photos of a child's father be removed from the home.
It sure seems fishy, does it not?
I think you're being kind. All right. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. All right. Lucy, I'm going to murder your name. Velamina? I'll let you say it. If you would, please give your name, and if you're representing somebody other than yourself, who that might be.
Good afternoon. Thank you
And
so
get
much.
as close to the microphone as you can.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to you. I come all the way from Orange County, California. I wanted to tell you about my harrowing story of my son's medical abuse, extreme bias against a protective parent, retaliation for exposing the truth, and sex utilized as a bargaining tool for custody. I am a teacher and a school principal in charge of an entire school of children by the state of California, which grants me teaching credentials. I'm also a mandated reporter, and I've also had to report abuse or suspected abuse to CPS. My son Jacob was a happy, healthy, and thriving young man, a child at the time, for 12 years that I raised him. Unfortunately, when we went through family court, he was appointed a minors counsel, which is similar to guidem ad litem. Minors counsel Diane Vargas provided false testimony in court as a retaliatory effort against me since I filed 2 bar complaints regarding her professional misconduct. The judge also decided to retaliate against me as well. And the judge, Donald Gaffney, legally kidnapped my son from me since I exposed the truth regarding minors counsel's ICE in court through documentation. Minors counsel falsely testified in court that my son was in danger and that I was an unfit parent. However, the 730 evaluation that was court ordered stated no such thing. I was placed on supervised visits for 4 hours a week despite raising my son for 12 years and also having 2 grown adult daughters and being an educator and a mandated reporter. As a school principal, I have 2 master's degrees in education, but yet I was being supervised by someone without a college degree. I was so perplexed by this train of events. Due to the cost of supervision, I had to sell my home and to pay for my attorney's fees and all the reunification therapy that I was subjected to. The court refused to provide appropriate alimony despite the enormous disparity in incomes. As a teacher, I made a meager salary, which I was very grateful and blessed with. However, my ex-husband made over $300,000, which was over 3 times the amount that I made. But I was only given $468 a month to survive on. My son Jacob was medically abused by my ex-husband, but Judge Donald Gaffney at the ex-parte hearing said there was no such abuse, despite medical documentation. I also filed 2 CPS reports informing them of my son's medical abuse, and it was disregarded.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes,
When
sir.
you say medical abuse, could you further define that for me?
Sure. My son, through the medical records, where his stepfather, which was my ex-husband, it's not even his biological father, took him to the doctor and performed various medical, procedures, yes, that were not, that he had already had at that point. And the doctor's office didn't think to question this previously or to obtain previous medical records from Chalk Hospital.
Okay.
My son Jacob is now suffering with lifelong medical complications, and he will for the rest of his life. In 2021, I had asked my ex-husband if I can see my son because I knew the court would never grant me custody of my son, despite me being in charge of the health and welfare of an entire school of children as a teacher and a school principal. My ex-husband provided an offer that I exchanged sexual favors in exchange for seeing my son. I was sexually raped for 6 months, but I had access to my son. And as a mom, I would do anything for my son. Apologize.
Take your time.
After the 6 months, I could no longer endure the abuse. We went back to court, and the judge said that I had violated a court order by seeing my son, and I was the one who was punished. My ex-husband, David Velema, was not punished for raping me and not allowing me to see my son in the process. There were 2 judges, Donald Gaffney, as well as Judge Thomas Lowe at the Orange County Family Courts in California that presided over my case. And both of them denied me alimony, custody, and also terminated my visitation rights. Even though the state of California allows me to be in charge of an entire school of children as a principal, as a teacher, for the health and welfare of these children, but yet I don't have access to my son, that's really disturbing to me as a parent and as an educator. I once again became a danger to my son, and the court and minors counsel refused to let me see my son, and again, I was placed on supervised visits. This reunification therapist, Jessica Sinclair, was appointed by the court, and she did not take insurance since she had previously been convicted of insurance fraud. And I was forced to pay cash or Venmo, which is from my checking account, for these reunification therapy sessions. Again, she provided false testimony in court to increase her profit margins. I want to express to you how far I've done, as many parents have spoken today. I filed, besides the 2 bar complaints that I filed against Minors Counsel that were dismissed by the bar, I filed 2 judicial complaints against the 2 judges. That was dismissed. I also wrote to the Board of Behavioral Sciences that is in charge of Jessica Sinclair as a therapist, and have not heard back since, and I know many other parents have done so as well. She is no longer teaching by choice, or I'm sorry, not teaching, sorry. She is no longer a part of the Orange County Family Courts in California by choice. She recused herself because of all the articles that have come out regarding the corruption that she perpetrated against the clients that were court appointed. She is, however, practicing in another state. I've also reached out to the FBI to inform them regarding the legal kidnapping of my son. It's been 6 years that I have not been able to see my son, except when I was raped, and that I was allowed to spend time with my son. For all I know, my file's sitting on an FBI office just collecting dust. I've called and spoken to 4 FBI agents, and they informed me that they can't provide any status on my case. To me, as an educator and responding to parent concerns, student concern, and staff concerns, I provide due diligence to ensure that I problem solve and I work with the people that I'm put in charge of. If the highest levels of government, if I can't depend on them, who can I depend on? Is it possible to make our judges accountable for their actions and not have immunity for abusing our children? Thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions?
Mr. Chair, if I can address an answer to Senator Hatali. She had asked a previous parent regarding finances. Just in my case, if I can speak to that, the court asked for a financial documentation. So all our paycheck stubs, bank statements. So when they look to see that one of the parents has a substantial amount of assets, they will drag it on for as long as they can. And that's how it's deduced as to the colluding that takes place regarding the abuse that our children are enduring.
And I presume that California law is similar to Arizona law. You don't have to agree to the so-called therapeutic intervention with that broad basket of psychological word salad. You don't have the option to agree to participate or decline. Is that correct?
No, it's court mandated,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Regardless of anybody's ability to pay.
Correct, yes.
They-
I wasn't able to pay, and therefore I had to stop at one point the supervised visits, and then I collected some more money, asked family, friends for funds so I can continue to see my son.
All right. So let me say it another way. They don't care.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Did the court question you, and this does have relevance here in Arizona, did the court question you on what other family members, what assets they might have? Did you have to disclose that to them, or was there discovery about that?
Not to my knowledge, Mr. Chair. It was just what my ex-husband and I had, our paycheck stub, the home we owned.
Okay. It just seems somewhat curious to me that they would force that on the earnings of a lower income parent as opposed to one who is perhaps more capable of covering the cost, and not, was there any opportunity to have a proportional assignment of cost, or did that not even enter the conversation?
Well, that's where it's decided upon, depending on the DISO master, how much you should get for whether it's child support or alimony. But because my attorney at the time was colluding with Minors Counsel, it was actually a conflict of interest. She had been his mentor during law school. So because of that, there's a current situation around that situation.
Okay.
regarding the law firm. But yes, so go ahead.
Who, your attorney, was the mentor to who in law school?
So minors counsel, which was my son's attorney appointed by the court,
Okay.
was the law professor or mentor for my attorney.
And the court saw no conflict of interest there? That's stunning.
No.
Okay. Representative Cashel.
Yeah, so, thank
And
you,
I-
Mr. Chair.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I wanted to also say there's an article, Sex for Custody in Orange County, California, and Representative Keschel, I did email that article to you.
Okay. Would you see to it that we get that? for the
Yes,
record?
I
Okay.
will. So, thank you so much for coming. I'm sorry for everything you've been through. But from what I just gathered from something you said that's a little shocking to me is the court order on your supervised visits was based on whether you could pay for the therapy or not. Did you say that when you were unable to pay, they took away any visitation from you, or did I misunderstand?
So we had gone to court to inform the judge that I could not no longer pay for supervised visits. So at that point, the judge, just said, well, if you can't pay, you can't see your son. Then when I took some time, collected some money, and like I said, family, friends, was able to get some substantial funding, then I wanted to still see my son and didn't want to get raped again. And so I wanted to be able to see my son. So then I went back to court, and the second judge, Thomas Lowe, that's who my case was transferred to, he denied me visitation and custody of my son, despite me being in charge as an educator and a school principal of an entire school of children by the state of California.
Mr. Chair?
Representative Fink.
Thank you. Maggie, thank you for coming all the way from California. I have some questions on the reunification therapy. Why was that court ordered? Was there efforts to get, again, that reunification effort so your son would go to the stepfather, or why was that ordered?
So after going back to court, after being sexually raped for 6 months, the court said that I was the one at fault in violating court orders. Minors counsel again lied in court. It was the same one, Diane Vargas.
Okay.
She informed the court and lied to the court and said that the child didn't want to go with me, even though he had just spent 6 months in my home. And so that's when the judge, again, honored her request and the false testimony she provided again,
Okay.
and sent me to reunification again.
Again, and therefore, after that, with that therapy, finding out that she had insurance fraud and all of that, was that taken into consideration at all? Okay.
No, Representative Fink, no.
Okay, thank you.
Members, any other questions? All right. Ma'am, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
You're quite welcome. All right. Next, we have Lee McCarty. Hi, Lee. If you would, if you don't want that quite so high, there's a switch to your right that or you can do that. If you would please give your name and who are you here representing, if it's somebody other than yourself.
Hi, I'm Leah McCarty.
Get
Thank
really
you.
close to the microphone.
Thank you for having me today. I am here representing a family from Arizona. Their names are Jonathan and Rebecca Burr. They are constituents in Arizona who went out of town on a vacation to see their sick mother in Nevada, Clark County. They are homesteaders. They have 40 acres in Apache County and currently have a lease for a home in Maricopa County that would give them a safe place to reside back in Arizona. The beginning of December, they went on a trip to visit their ailing mother. And when they got there, they saw how desperate the mother was and they wanted to spend the holidays. It was cold here. So they decided to reach out to Clark County for assistance in temporary housing through the holidays so that they could be there for their mother. The requirement was that they were to be seen at this hotel by the department, whatever, I don't know what the department in Clark County is called, but their social services were to come to the hotel and they were to assess the children and the family and the needs that they were required. They came with police officers armed. They came with the fire department, the ambulance. They separated the parents and took the dad outside of the hotel room and they left the mother and the 3 smaller children. So the ages of the children are 1, 2, and 4. They're very small. And then they have a 13 and a 14-year-old. They also have 2 other children that had been previously taken from other states, and they had been gone for many years. So these 5 younger children are the ones that they currently still have. Long story short, they were, the children were immediately taken from them and put into separate housing situations. The 3 younger ones were put into a foster home. The 2 older ones were put into a care facility that had barbed wire on the inside, right next to their DCS office or their courthouse. There's something there in Clark County. And the parents were then not allowed to leave the state, because if they left the state, that it would be abandonment and the children would be fast-tracked adopted out of the system. So they were forced then to live on the streets. They've been living on the streets of Vegas since December, the 1st of December. They have their 2 dogs with them that have lost a significant amount of weight. Not that that's is relevant to this family, but they have these dogs. They have everything is in their car. And the state has told them that they are now constituents of Clark County. The reason I'm here today is their court cases, they have another court case tomorrow. The end of this month, May 30th, is the last date for the 6-month period of time that this family has to get these children back. There has been no medical reasons for them to have taken these children. The youngest son has an eye problem that he was born with. They are holistically treating these children. They do not vaccinate. They're homesteaders. They had a business on their property. They raised goats, chickens. They lived a natural, organic life that people have the right to do in this country. And they were deemed unfit, medically negligent to their children because they had dirty feet. They weren't wearing shoes and they had dirty feet. And so that is written in the statements, and they were taken from this family, and they have tried to get help from Arizona. I personally have met with Jerry Sheridan 3 times. I've sat in his office. I've spoken at sex trafficking events. My background is I spent 2 years in the streets of Phoenix working with sex trafficked people, helping them get off the streets. I had a ministry. Our bus has been shot at. We've been in fights with pimps trying to help girls on the streets. So I have a very active group of people that tries to help people that are trafficked. This family came to me through a friend, and I have just tried to stand in the gap. They currently come to my house when need be for food, shelter, washing their clothes, having a safe place to sleep at night.
So the family in Nevada, do they have an attorney?
They did, but they do nothing for them. They represent themselves. They are extremely knowledgeable in the Constitution. They defend themselves on every level. And they have no representation but themselves. We now have an ADA advocate here in the room that has been helping me. It's a lot. It's a really, really big deal what's happening. They also found they had pulled a bond on their youngest son that matures in 2054.
To what purpose?
With the Treasury, yeah, it's a bond against the youngest child. They are trying to they're trying to take him from Nevada, and they're trying to do eye surgery from a pro bono doctor in Utah. The child, they've vaccinated. We believe that they have vaccinated the child. He was mobile, getting to walk, pulling up, crawling, all the things that infants do. And now he's slumped over in a chair. And when they do visitation through the Zoom, the baby's just slumped over in a chair and there's nobody in the room. The dad's saying, hello, is anybody there? Is anybody watching our children? The 2- and 4-year-old are running around hitting each other. There's nobody there. I do believe what has been happening, and this is just from research, they are taking illegal aliens that have come across this border and been given social security numbers that from I'm assuming the Biden administration. Now they have social security cards. They are now the caregivers of these foster care homes. They don't speak English. The older children have expressed this in that group home. They've said they're Cambodian, they're every nationality and they don't speak any English. So now the children don't even have somebody that speaks English. In the court documents, the father has been accused of raping the 14-year-old daughter, and that the 1-year-old is the product of that rape, yet the father's not been arrested for anything. They've now told all 5 children that the father is not actually even their father. And
Okay, who told them?
the social workers.
Okay, so I would like to humbly suggest that you contact the Arizona Attorney General and ask for her to be an intervener in that case. Do it now.
Okay.
Okay? Members, any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, to that point, how does Nevada have jurisdiction over this
They
family?
don't. They've stolen these children. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, they told them, if you lose this case, we are going to take your children from you and vaccinate them from birth all the way to whatever age they are. Every single vaccine that they have missed from childhood, they're going to get in one day. And then they've told the parents, you now are constituents here, and if you want your children back, you have to get a home here in Nevada to provide for your family, when they have 40 acres and a 5-bedroom house in Maricopa County legally done. It's
You need to
my,
contact the Arizona Attorney General and ask her to be an intervener.
okay.
Okay? Members, any other questions? All right, ma'am. Thank you very much for your testimony. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, Ryan Murray. All right. Ryan, I hate to be a curmudgeon on time, but we're going super slow. So if you could do 7 minutes instead of 10,
I think I can.
that means that we can get 2 more people to testimony before we conclude.
So thank you. My name's Ryan Murray.
Get as close to the microphone as you can, Ryan.
I'm here for representing myself, Ryan Murray, as well as We the People. It was my understanding that loss of a parent is the most traumatic thing that can happen to a child. My children have lost a father for 6 years, and I have been in Arizona Family Court trying to make sense of it all and trying to be a loving and available father. I started with a judge by the name of Allison Bacchus, who took a Rule 69 50 custody agreement that was in writing and threw it out, and I have not been a father since.
I'm sorry, did she give a reason for throwing out the stipulated custody agreement?
Mother said on the stand that she had changed her mind and hired a different attorney. It was the attorney, Francis McGinnis, who decided that child support and 100% custody was what they were going for.
Okay, so you're not engaged in a 5225 plan?
No.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
I was referred to David Weinstock, who was said to be the expert in the state of Arizona, and that he would help, go through the TI process and would hold the other party accountable to the immediate reunification that I had in a court document. And in that original court document of immediate reunification, 6 years later, that still has not happened.
Did you have a contract with him?
Yes.
And forgive me, I'm trying to understand, if the court made a decision unilaterally, how did this Weinstock fella enter the picture?
Yeah.
If he wasn't appointed by the court.
It had to do with the carousel of collusion of people working together. So my attorney had a relationship with him and referred me.
Okay, so just a minute. He wasn't appointed by the court to act as a judicial delegation to intervene on your case. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
So at that point, he referred us to Pastor Brooks Gibson for this immediate reunification. Pastor Gibson had lost his license, which I did not know at that time, and took a meeting before with the opposing party. And when I showed up, it was said that there would be no immediate reunification. So I went back to court, and it was referred to a Marcia Farrick as a therapeutic interventionist. when my attorney wrote a letter and said, hey, we've got something here that says immediate reunification, she recused herself. It was then referred to Annette Ruskin, and Annette Ruskin was given the same documentation of immediate reunification. She said that it was not her job to follow the court orders and that she was the determinator of whether or not there would be any reunification. That never happened under Annette Ruskin's watch. Over a year. I then was referred to Carolyn Mullen, who tried to facilitate immediate reunification, and Mother opposed her as being appointed. So it got put off again to another therapeutic interventionist. His name was John Sciali, who actually is referred to as the most expensive person in the TI world in the state of Arizona. I did not attain immediate reunification with John Sciali. So between the carousel of lawyers and TIs, the only thing that was consistent was a request for my AFI. Everybody wanted to know what my W-2 said, what my payroll stub was, what my bank accounts were, what were the lines of credit that I had. And unfortunately, your description of the goose that laid the golden egg feels very personal to me, because I'm on the throes of not being able to pursue being a parent anymore because I'm going to be bankrupt. I'm right there right now after 6 years of fighting for this to be possible. There has been a gag order to not say anything from day one. This is the first opportunity that I've had a chance to even say anything.
Who's the judge?
The judge currently is Julie Mata.
Is that the one that put the gag order on you?
No, it was Allison Bacchus. And then
Okay.
Ted Campagnello, who basically said I didn't have a voice and that I didn't have any rights of a father.
Which seems, excuse me, that seems very odd.
It is very odd.
Since there is a group that parades around this country as a father's rights group that actually endorses the whole TI process. In fact, they were instrumental in installing it. So I guess that we'll have to follow up on that. But please proceed. I'm sorry I took your time.
The difference is, I have a 3-year global master's degree, and I've traveled around the world studying campuses abroad, and am an expert on corruption in global business. Fraudulent actors are people that engage in deception or fraud that harm the outcome to gain personal and financial gain. And when somebody asks me for my pay stub and my W-2 and how many credit cards I have before they ever ask about a child, civil rights of children are being overlooked for greed. And my case is personal to me. Racketeering is a set of illegal activities aimed at commercial profit. What we have here today in Arizona is a business that is making a lot of money. Others before me have detailed it, and it's very painful to hear. Racketeering is defined as a coordinated effort by multiple people to repeatedly earn a profit, typically by fraud and threats. I was always threatened to not be a father. I was always threatened that I wouldn't have access. It's 6 years later, and I still don't have access. Collusion is a secret agreement or cooperation for illegal or dishonest purpose. 2 or more parties working together secretly to achieve a goal that is unethical and unlawful. And this, unfortunately, is happening daily in our state of Arizona. And I plead for everyone to think about the civil rights of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a quick point of clarification.
Please proceed.
Something that you said, I just want to clarify what you're saying, is what I heard. The therapist basically claimed that he was the one that had authority over to decide what would
Annette
happen to your
Ruskin
children.
said repeatedly
I'm
that
sorry.
it didn't matter that I had a court order for immediate reunification.
And the name of that individual, because you were talking over each other.
Yeah. Annette Ruskin.
Annette Ruskin. Okay.
So, yeah, so thank you. You are saying exactly what I thought I heard, that Annette Ruskin said, I don't care about any court order, and then she got to decide what was best for your children.
And I found out in her lobby, speaking with her child, that her daughter was not allowed to have a relationship with her father. Imagine how I felt on that day when I had a retainer of over $2,000 for immediate reunification and I wasn't able to speak to my children.
So let me get this straight. Who prevented you from communicating with your children?
If I had a court order, in my opinion, that said immediate reunification, it was the TI that kept me from communicating with my children.
So did the court make any kind of an order preventing you from having communication with your children?
No.
Let's take the TI out of the picture right now. Did a judge tell you you don't get to have any kind of visitation with your kids?
No.
Did the judge give you any kind of plan like a 5225 shared co-parenting plan?
I shared that with the therapeutic interventionist. I said, these are the custody arrangements that I see as being normal, and they were not addressed and never discussed.
Okay. Now, let's re-inject the TI into the process. Given the fact that the judge did not even address it, the TI is the one who prevented you from having any contact with your children?
That's correct.
Okay. Did the term parental alienation ever enter the conversation?
Every day.
Uh-huh.
And you know what I was told? It's not alienation, it's estrangement. And I'm semantically challenged by that, because if I can't speak to them and I can't see them and they don't have my love, I believe that that is alienation.
Okay. So the term parental alienation, it occurs to me, and I'm not going to ask Monty to come back up here, but it occurs to me that if you take out parental and you insert, I don't know, provider alienation, that individual is actively, and I know that there's two thoughts about alienation. There's active, where an individual is influencing by either word or deed against a parent. And then there's passive. It's the parent who's like, I am not going to say a word about my ex-spouse's lifestyle. I'm just going to be silent. That's also been called parental alienation. But for you to have a provider intervene and cause that, when you're the one, I'm just trying to understand here, you're the one paying money to them to promote contact, to promote involvement, and move away from the alienation schedule. Am I whacked in the head, or is that basically what's happened here?
That is exactly what happened.
Okay. All right, members, any other questions? Sir, thank you very much for coming forward. I appreciate it. Next up, we have Monica Ballard. I don't know if it's Ballard or Bullard. Ballard, okay.
Since this is about the children, I brought to 50.
Okay, hold on.
My name is Monica Ballard. These are pictures of my children.
Okay.
Because it is all about the children.
Bunch of cuties.
Yes, they are. So, and my name is Monica Ballard, and I'm representing them. I'm also a veteran teacher here in Arizona, native Arizonan. Worked at Cottonwood Oak Creek School District for many years,
Okay.
and now I'm a therapist. Because of what I went through in the family courts, I had the choice. I said, am I going to go to law school or am I going to become a therapist? I'm going to do something because this is so wrong. So that's why I'm here. I'm a therapist.
All right, you got 7 minutes to tell your story.
Okay, yes. So I would like to, my kids were this age when I first had to go through the family court system in Yavapai County. They're now ages 18 and 21. Barely got free 2 years ago. It took the almost death of one of my children to get to that stage. So I just briefly want to share, we all know that adverse childhood experiences reflect later in life. So we're talking things that happen in children's childhood is going to affect them as an adult. Suicidality, criminality, mental illnesses, all that kind of stuff. And the family court system is contributing in Arizona to that, to these poor outcomes. My children, when this process started, had 4 ACEs, 4 adverse childhood experiences, which is why I divorced their father, because that's not the home I was going to raise them in. By the time I was done with the family court system, they each now have 7. And have had a host of issues that are related to that.
Excuse me, can
Yes.
you give me an example of adverse?
So, yes. So any type of, so there's a checklist, and there was thousands of people study done.
I just need
Checklist.
one example.
So it would be physical abuse, emotional abuse,
Okay,
neglect,
okay.
addictions, that kind of
I
stuff.
was just looking for some context, that's all.
Yes, yes. So going through those in childhood later are directly related to alcoholism, directly related to any of these homeless people you see on the street. My heart goes out to them because I know that's directed to their childhood. That is directly linked to their childhood. So the higher risk, and so that's what's so terrible about this. This is a bipartisan issue that everybody should care about, because if children are protected, that is going to alleviate a lot of stress on systems later, a lot of stress on the family, like the judicial system, a lot of stress elsewhere. So it's a bipartisan issue that everybody should care about. As a therapist, okay, so one reason I went back to school is obviously a lot of therapists don't accept insurance, and I have 4 children now that I'm going to help for the rest of their lives heal from what they've been through. And so I'm like, I'll go to school and I will get the tools that I need to help them, but I also want to help other people as well. And in doing that, in my time at a state university here, I spent I saw 1 page in one of my textbooks that talked about domestic violence. If you
I'm
wonder
sorry,
why
talked
therapists
about
don't
what?
get it, I had 1 page in one of my textbooks that talked about domestic violence in my graduate degree studies. So if you want to know why you go to therapists that don't get it, that is why. What I know about helping abuse victims is from my personal experiences and my 10 years on my own, reading everything I possibly could about pathological personalities, how they get away with it, what their tactics are. All of that I now have in my toolbox because of my own studies. I did not get that in college. I did not get that in my graduate degree. And that's scary.
Even though you were studying to be a therapist?
Correct. I myself, in trying to save my family, went to 6 different therapists. Of those 6 different therapists, 2 recognized you are with an abuser, you need to protect your children, you need to get out. 2 out of the 6. The odds are very bad. So now I've also been before 6 family court judges. Out of those 6 family court judges, 2 recognized abuse. 2 recognized that I was with an abuser. To me, I know a lot of people talk about money. I didn't see money as the issue. I saw a profound lack of education with therapists, with DCS workers, and with judges. Profound. So during my graduate studies, I got to go work at DCS, and it all made sense why my kids were never protected. Are you aware that to work at DCS as a caseworker, you need to have a 4-year degree in anything? I can have a 4-year degree in recreation management or English or anything. And I can go and be a DCS caseworker. It doesn't have to be in social work. It doesn't have to be in psychology. I don't need any background in anything at all. 4-year degree. I go for 6 weeks of training, and I'm a DCS worker. Yes.
Well, you just said something that really caught my attention. So do you think that it sounds like your educational experience is fairly recent?
Yes.
When did you graduate?
Last summer.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Would you say that the textbook books have become, on a scale with center being what it should be, have they become more a politically correct agenda, or are they really aimed at therapeutics?
First one. First one. I had to just toe the line during schooling. There was a lot of political stuff.
So you regularly
Yes.
paid the BS card on
Yes. Oh, yeah. It was hoops.
professor.
Yep.
It kind of reminds me of Katie Pavlich when she, before she became a newscaster. Shout out to Katie Pavlich.
Mm-hmm.
She was called U of A Katie on a radio show down in Tucson years ago, And every Friday they heard from U of A Katie, and she regularly railed on the crap that she was fed in class and how she simply had to go along to get along to graduate.
Exactly.
Is that your
Oh, exactly.
feeling about what you had to do?
100%. And not to put down any marginalized community, but I was required to take an entire semester-long class directed at this one particular marginalized community that deserves attention, no doubt, but that's one small community, whereas domestic violence permeates every single court case that comes in the family court. Why was I not given an entire class on understanding domestic violence, understanding abusers, recognizing those tactics, how to help victims? One page. And I was very aware because of what I've been through. I was very watching for it. Never, and so I have a master's degree in social work is what I have now.
Okay.
And it was a very small amount.
Forgive me, I got to ask you again. You know what DEI is, right?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say that not just the textbooks, but also the instruction is permeated with DEI?
Very heavily, and at the expense of actual real issues that every client is probably facing. If you're in therapy, an abuser, traditionally 11 people have to go to therapy. 11 people around the abuser have to go to therapy from dealing with that person. So to not get that kind of education in school, and this is a state university here in Arizona that I went to. Great people, my professors were great, the people I went to were great, but that was a profound lack of, it made sense why every therapist I went to could hardly figure anything out because they're not given those kind of tools. So that, and then my time at DCS, it suddenly made sense because these are people, and I also, all throughout my graduate studies, my professors probably got sick of it. I was writing about family courts and the problems and all that, and I would love to share all the statistics, 30 plus citations of, you're twice as how much you're likely to lose custody of your kids if you allegate abuse, huge. The people that end up in family court, 90% of people solve it on their own. 90% don't even go to court. Then the next 4 to 5% need like a lawyer or some mediators. It's only the last 4 to 5% that go all the way to trial and have a stranger make decisions for them. Guess who is involved in that last 4 or 5%? Always pathological personalities that lack compassion, love drama, blame shift, take no accountability. Do we know who we're talking about here, right? But family court judges aren't aware of that. They assume that, these are just two people that don't get along. DCS workers, and all this research is in here. Tons of research has been done on this. It just hasn't made it to the people that need to know about it. So DCS workers, characteristically, if they find out, there's a custody battle, hands off. And research shows that. And 63% of the time, they've found there is actual abuse that's taken place that was totally ignored because the DCS worker says, there's a custody battle, they're just fighting it out, let's let them figure it out. So it becomes a ping pong match where DCS doesn't do anything. They say, the courts are gonna figure it out. The courts get it and say, DCS didn't do anything, there must not really be abuse. And so they ping pong it, and it happens with law enforcement as well. When allegations are made to law enforcement and they find out you're in a custody battle, the courts are gonna take care of it. So it is volleyed all around to all these agencies, and the children are left unprotected and nothing happens to protect them.
So, would you say then that today's therapists and probably today's judges are woefully inadequately trained?
Absolutely.
Not just in what their job is, but I'm going to struggle with the psychology of individuals that make their way deep into the system.
Yes, research shows judges do not do any better than the average person on identifying an abuser.
Okay.
No better.
Next question is, is it your impression, since you've been on the inside of this thing, I'm reading your card, so you're a therapist, former DCS intern, protective, and you've got a long list of stuff here on your card. We've got a situation where, frankly, your colleagues, you're going to have to blow the whistle on them.
Gladly. For children, gladly.
Didn't know what they were doing.
Absolutely.
Is that a fair enough statement?
Absolutely.
So it was about, we're just going to pass the ball to somebody else that hopefully they know what they're doing.
Right. And there's a lot of professionals that do that. They just think, well, or the judge, the next judge will just stamp it because this is what the last judge did. Oh, and that's what the last judge did. So instead of them like getting informed themselves,
Right.
they just kind of follow the train of what the previous person did.
Very similar to an ex parte conversation without saying a word.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So the next question I've got for you is, of these people that finally make it into the court system, I'm going to call it the vortex.
It is.
Well, you can't get out. Do these tend to be folks who are, shall we say, more wealthy?
It can be. In my case, that was definitely the case. I think to me, it's people that, for example, I was told, if you start this, if you file for divorce and you try to take I will destroy you. I will take everything. Go ahead, see what I'm going to do. That's what I was told. It's those type of personalities that are competitive and will take it to the end, even at the expense of their children. The children are collateral damage. If they can, and it's post-separation abuse is what it's called, and if they can harm the person that dared to leave them and dared to stand up to them, they'll do anything that they can to make them pay, including hurting their children. And that happened extensively. In the case with my judges, it was for just to tell you, the applicant for a judge that came open in Yavapai County, here's the criteria. Applicants must be at least 30 years of age, of good moral character, admitted to the practice of law in Arizona, and a resident of Arizona for the last 5 years. That's the criteria. So to me, that's like saying, okay, we have someone that needs brain surgery here. Who here at the hospital has been here for 5 years? Oh, okay, go in there and do that brain surgery. There is zero requirement to be in a family law background, zero requirement to understand psychology, zero requirements to understand abuse. That, to me, my number one issue is to make sure judges are required to do extensive training to understand domestic violence before they ever step foot in a family courtroom. But right now, my judge that I had was a tax and estate attorney. And he was brand new to the bench. So I was his first case, lucky us, and I had a $29,000 custody evaluation done by Dr. Moran in Scottsdale. The opposing party had chosen him. I chose somebody else that was much more versed on domestic violence from what I thought. So the opposing party chose him. This 75-page paper comes out and says, father is unsafe. He has hurt the kids before, he's going to hurt them again. 50-50.
And the court?
50-50. The judge took a half hour to deliberate.
Slow down. Slow down.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane.
Look, everybody, I appreciate the passion that's going here, but there's so much information coming at us. I want to make sure that we have a moment to absorb it.
Thank you.
Okay. So, father had a history of domestic abuse.
Correct.
Physical, mental, or?
Correct. Mainly towards the children. Not so much as me, mainly towards the children.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, that helps. Did at any time the court have a discussion, an open discussion about, I hate to use the term, what's best for the child? What's best for the children? I mean, or was this purely about the adults?
They regularly referred, because the opposing party was a doctor, so they would regularly refer, Dr. So-and-so, blah, blah, blah. You could tell they gave a lot of deference to him, and I think just discarded because they're not aware of the research that says if you're in family court, there's issues you need to look at. They kind of just look at it as, oh, she's just making allegations that are not accurate, because this is, what man that goes to 8 years of college would treat his kids this way? So the stuff I had to say was so crazy, but true, that they would just disregard what I had to say.
Are you aware that family court duty for a judge is a rotation?
Yes, I have heard that, and I feel like they should not be allowed in that room until they get extensive training, because it's like sending a surgeon or somebody to do surgery that's never had the training to do surgery, and that sounds crazy, but they do it in family court all the time.
Yeah, it's a 3-year assignment, and I have it on good authority from a family court judge that it is the most hated assignment in the entire court system.
Right. Understandably, but those are our lives. They just have to hear about it.
Understandably,
Those
but
are
at
our
the
lives.
same time, these are individuals who have a hatred for what they're doing.
Right.
Have ultimate power over the people that they're doing it to.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
could I ask a question?
Are
you still going?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
You had emailed me
Yes.
about my bill in regards to currently it's 50-50 that's being awarded. and that because of that, that is what caused some, you said $200,000 in courts.
Yeah, I stopped counting at 200,000.
Yeah, and then also that, unfortunately, one of your daughters had suicidal efforts there as well. So can you talk to that, how maybe currently the way it's set up, the 50-50, is creating some of the problems that we're seeing right now?
It just seems like your kid literally has to be at death's door, or like the parent, chops off appendages before the court will listen. Otherwise, it's just like split the baby and move on, is what it feels like. Just split the baby and move on. So no matter what I would say and things I showed in court, my daughter with rope burn marks, pictures of her with the rope burn marks around her neck from her dad, and he just made up a story in court. So I submitted all this information. I reported stuff to DCS. I did all these things, and I literally got chastised by Judge Christopher Kotke for wasting the resources of the police and the DCS. And he got after me for crying.
To that point, did anybody bother to interview the minor?
Well, Dr. Moran did, and he ignored that 75-page paper.
What about the police department?
Yes, the police. So at one point, yeah, my kids have, and that's the part of the problem is you have more people involved and more people that don't do anything. Everybody that comes along after looks at that and says, "Oh, it's one of those," and they step aside and let it continue. So
Okay,
that's what's happened in my
sorry,
case.
I'm struggling with if it was reported to the police that a parent, you just heard from somebody else who their child had rickets and had a broken bone.
Right.
Okay. Seems like law enforcement was very aggressive there.
Right.
DCS was very aggressive there.
Right. It's
My
so
question
arbitrary.
to you is, in this particular case, was there a police report made about the marks on your child?
Yes. Well,
And the police report, did they interview the child?
I'm
going somewhere with this.
Yes. Yeah. There's so many different times where police did interview my kids for different things.
Did the children, just pick one, did the
Okay.
children express what happened?
Yes.
And as a part of the court proceeding, was that ever considered?
I submitted it in court. So one example is my daughter talking about sexual abuse from her father. I took her to the Prescott Advocacy Center. They interviewed her, and in the interview, they determined, well, some families are nudist families. And I'm like, well, my family has never been a nudist family. So dad sleeping with a little girl naked while he's naked, that's not normal to me. But they felt like that did not raise to the level of being able to do something about it. Yet I still had that video. And I said, okay, the police aren't going to do anything. I'm still going to take this to court, because surely a judge is going to say, you know what, a grown man sleeping naked with a little girl that's never did that. We didn't do that before when I was married to him. This is when I separated. That's not normal. And so I took it, and Judge Michael Bluff gave him primary custody after that. And I was chastised for leaving, because I packed up my kids, my family came and got me, and I moved from Cottonwood down to Phoenix, and I was chastised for hurting the relationship of the kids with their father. Michael Bluff told me that, so he gave custody. So I had the choice, this poor woman that talked about what she had to do, I had the choice to let my kids go be with this man that I knew was not safe, or tell him, oh, you know what, I changed my mind, let's work it out. And that's what I did. For the next 2 years, I moved back into that home and stayed with my little girls, because I was not going to leave them with the man that did that. And I secretly recorded him and did everything I could to get proof that what I was saying about this pillar in the community that goes to church and is, referred to as a doctor all throughout the community, I finally got proof. And that's why Dr. Moran sided with me, even though the opposing counsel hired him, because I had so much proof. And then Judge Kotke comes along, and what I know about Michael Bluff, I was told by somebody, they said, you know what you need to do? You need to go to his bar that he owns downtown and flirt with him after hours. That's what I did. That's what turned my case around. And I said, that does not fit with my morals. And I was told by the domestic violence agency there in Cottonwood, you'll never, if you're a victim of abuse, you will never get a good ruling from Judge Michael Bluff. He's been divorced twice, and he tried to get custody of his kids in his divorce, and I since have looked this up, public record, and wasn't able to. So you are not in a good position to go against him and try to get custody as a female, to try to get custody of your kids.
So would you say that he's not a neutral arbiter?
Oh, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
All right.
So just really quickly, Mr. Chair, was there actual evidence of either physical or sexual abuse or that was presented at some point? Because I've heard that time and time again, that there's actual evidence presented.
Yes. And what you need to understand, and I understand having been an abuse victim and now on the other side of it, is you have to be ready to pull the plug and be done with the relationship Because if you try to go report to the police, hey, he just did this, and then go back home that night, that's not safe. So I left and then said, hey, police, here's all this evidence. Oh, this is in the midst of a custody battle. Hands off. So it was dismissed as, so you're up a creek. If you try to report it while you're still in the home, then you're under the same roof of an abuser who's not safe. I mean, the last night with him, I slept with a chair up against the door handle of the door because I was so afraid of what was going to happen, and I knew my family was coming the next day to save me. But just scary. You cannot go report that stuff and then stay in the home with that individual. You have to get away, get safe, and then start reporting. But unfortunately, everyone looks at it as, oh, sour grapes, you're just trying to get a leg up in the legal process. And I have, in my reports here, I have a policy brief as well as an annotated bibliography, and it all talks about how that's very, very common, that professionals that are profoundly uneducated on this just assume, they go off of gut instinct. Most people go off of gut instinct, and they just assume, oh, this is a legal strategy that this person is using, and they're just trying to get a leg up in the divorce. And no disrespect to the TI that gave testimony the last hearing. As I listened to her, I said, this person is very, very uneducated on pathological personalities. Mm-hmm. That's like saying, oh, come on, Jewish people, you really need to get along with Hitler better. Please, for the good of everybody, just get along better. It's like that. And how ridiculous is that, right? Or Mother Teresa would not be able to get along with these type of people because you literally just have to lay back and not fight at all. And that's when your kids are at stake. To be a peacemaker, you're just supposed to lay back and let them be hurt. That was the alternative.
I'm familiar with that in the TI world, that somebody's got to roll over and be belly up.
Yep.
So, all right, members, any further questions? Ms. Ballard, thank you very much for your time. And you got a cute bunch of, oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Senator Warner.
Thank you. Could you provide your contact information?
Sure.
To our staff over here? I'd like to reach out.
Yes, I would be happy to help in any way that I possibly can. This is like my dying wish to
And
have
if
the
you
family
would,
court system
the
overall.
documentation you have, would you please give that to Zach?
Yes.
Thank you.
I also wanted to mention, if I could, the National Violence Against Women Act has incorporated money for states that are willing to overhaul their family court custody system and give money. So our state could get money. If you look up Caden's law, states that are implementing this overhaul get funding from the federal government because this is a problem all over the place, but each state needs to decide, oh, we're going to change things. So Arizona could get some funding if we are willing to do this.
Well, and Title 4D is a problem, obviously, so if you would, please make sure that that information is either given to him or her. Thank you. Okay. Shelley Regard? My best regards? Is properly pronounced?
Shirley Requard.
Oh, that's a cue, sorry. Yeah. You can use the switch to bring the table down. That'll maybe make it a little more comfortable for you. All right, Shelley, if you would please give your name for the record and who you represent if it's somebody other than yourself.
Shirley Requard. I'm representing myself.
Okay, and you have 7
And
minutes.
I'm the oldest and shortest here today. So I don't
I'm
want
sorry?
I don't want any age jokes or short jokes.
No, I'm not going to give any short jokes. Other than time is short.
I'm going to hold you to that.
All right. All right, ma'am. Please proceed.
In late October of 2023, my 8-year-old grandson was removed from my care in Tucson and placed with friends for 14 days due to a false allegation by my grandson of physical abuse. The Pima County Sheriff's Department closed the criminal case within 9 days, finding no evidence, yet DCS refused to return my grandson to me. The DCS investigator himself witnessed the forensic interview with the detective, first grade, or whatever, whichever, that was there. And so he was right there. I have that documented. But he failed to report that the detective had dropped the charges, therein violating Brady versus Maryland. Civil rights attorneys call this judicial deception. Mm-hmm. This is known as a failed front-end investigation, as you know.
And this happened in what year, ma'am?
October of 2023.
Thank you.
Later, DCS falsely alleged that I violated their home safety plan by confronting my friends who had my grandson at their home, verbally accosting her and her fire captain husband, who was also a friend, and attempting to take my grandson, which did not happen. On November 9th, I filed a writ of remonstrance by affidavit demanding my grandson's return. Instead, DCS moved him to a placement in Casa Grande, Pinal County. This done without notifying myself or the court. 2 weeks later, Judge Kristen Schreiner learned of this violation of their policies and procedures and ordered that my grandson be returned to his Tucson private school, which he'd attended since preschool, and he was in the 3rd grade at the time. 156 miles round trip every day on the deadly I-10 because DCS refused to search for a Tucson placement for an 8-year-old little boy. This was torture. This was torture. Note, despite stating otherwise, DCS made no effort to contact my other daughter living in Washington State as placement. She was eager to welcome her beloved, bonded nephew into her care. They reported multiple phone calls to her. My daughter said, "Nobody called me." For 9 months, DCS denied my grandson any contact with me or his older brother, claiming he was too afraid to see me. Disproving this claim by DCS, when I finally was allowed to see my grandson days before his 9th birthday, he ran into my arms, told me he loved me, wrapped his arms around my waist. "Hey, Grandma, I miss you." DCS continued pressuring me to admit to the allegation that I struck him multiple times with a stiletto heel. DCS violated policy, rules, statutes, and every constitutional norm in existence. My grandson during this time received multiple vaccinations despite a documented religious exemption. Several of those shots were duplicates of ones that he'd already received, mandated prior to preschool. And despite a drug allergy, amoxicillin was prescribed for him, risking his health due to DCS's failure to check the medical records of his own pediatrician because they took him to another pediatric clinic. My brave little grandson came forward and admitted that he had lied about the allegations against me. I didn't hit him with a stiletto heel. He did not have blood rolling down his arm and onto the floor. And I didn't hit his friends. All allegations alleged in the DCS report. Despite his admission that his original statements were false, DCS's contracted therapist refused to believe him. She was sitting right there. She refused to believe him because DCS and this contracted therapist got together and figured out that I had coerced him.
Excuse me, ma'am. How could you coerce him if you don't have any contact with him?
I was sitting right next to him the first time I ever got to sit with him.
Did
with
they
the
observe any
therapist.
conversation between the two of you?
I had not spoken to him other than just little bits of information, back and forth, how are things, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And the therapist said to me, "What brought you to DCS? Which opened the door?" So I could then address what brought me to DCS. I said, "Well, he had some bruises on his arm." She said, "Did you have bruises on your arm?" "Yeah." "Where?" "Right here." I said, "No, honey, they were on your left arm, according to the pictures." And he said, "Oh, yeah." "And how did he get those, Shirley?" "Well, he said that the paperwork said that I hit him with a stiletto heel." Then I said, "Did that happen?" "No, it didn't happen." "Oh." And I'm not making eye contact with him. I said, "Well, what about the blood that was rolling down your arm and onto the floor?" "Blood? There was never any blood." Well, what about the times that I hit you, that I hit so many of your friends? You never hit any of my friends. So with those allegations under her belt, his recanting of this story, I went to the therapist's office the next day. I asked if I could have a copy of the transcript.
Excuse me, is this the information that was included in your Brady motion?
No, there was no Brady motion.
Oh, okay.
I'm just telling you that it was a violation. I went there the next day, and she said, I didn't take notes. You didn't take any notes. And she had as it came out, she had gotten together with the DCS caseworker, and they decided that if they said that I had colluded with him, tried to coerce him into saying these things when I hadn't had any contact with him, that they could keep him. So what that forced me to do was engage a private licensed psychologist to get unbiased therapy for my grandson. He told this therapist he had not been struck, no blood, no injury to his friends, all charges that were alleged in the DCS report. So DCS isolated my grandson from me and his older brother, mishandled his medical care, and violated HIPAA privacy laws, and failed to provide transparency due to systemic failures of the Guardian system. As you are undoubtedly aware, the $89 Guardian system implemented in February of 2021 remains dysfunctional to this day, hindering the access to disclosure for families, thousands of them facing permanent termination of their parental rights. Judge Gass, presiding over the First Division Appeals Court, is investigating DCS and the Attorney General's handling of disclosure to parents. Redaction is allegedly the problem. However, without consulting taxpayers, Health and Human Services just gave DCS another $31 million bailout for the Guardian system, despite its record of abysmal failure. To me, this smacks of rewarding poor performance and ensuring fat salaries for those who have no incentive to assure or achieve their goal. Could go on for years.
Yeah.
$51 million a year.
Would you mind just finishing up, because your time is up, Shirley?
Okay. This also doesn't address the fact that I've been placed on the child abuse registry, which means I can no longer teach Sunday school. I can no longer help with Vacation Bible School. As a registered pediatric nurse and an ordained chaplain, they're not going to give me any help in reversing this, and it's going to take months and months and months of paperwork, is what I've been told. So
Just a minute. Who placed you on the child abuse list?
Sir, I wish that you would be able to address that. I've asked everyone, and I've been told it's just automatic. Within days of being charged with something, you're automatically placed on the child abuse registry list for
Okay.
7 years.
Okay, before you leave, let's make sure that we get your contact information to the lady to my right, your left, all the way down there. I think we need to follow up with you and make sure that due process has been followed, because that sounds like a massive violation of due process in your civil rights.
Thank you, sir.
That should not be an automated thing.
None of this should have been automated.
I'm pretty sure that whoever told you that does not know what they're talking about.
The Arizona Assistant Attorney General is the one who told me that.
Well, then we'll have a conversation with the Assistant Attorney General. Okay,
Thank-
we need to have you wrap it up, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
All right. Members, any last minute questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am. And ma'am, make sure you get your contact information to this lady here. Okay? Thank you. All right, next up,
Chair.
ladies
Chair,
and gentlemen.
Chair, I have a question.
Oh.
For some reason, my mic is echoing. I do have a question.
For this lady?
No, for you.
Okay, yes, please.
I'm just wondering, are we talking about juvenile court or are we talking about family court? We seem,
Our focus is on family court, and I
Okay.
believe that that's what she was talking about. Shirley? Yes. Were you engaged in family court or juvenile court? Family court, okay. No, they're two different courts. Okay. All right. We'll get to the bottom of what the connection is, because it sounds like what you were going through was a family court matter. But I know that south of the Gila, they have combined court things because they don't have the volume of cases that we have in Maricopa County and North. All right, but thank you, Senator Totley. We'll look into that. Okay, Maulina Shiram? Okay.
Hi.
Drive the, okay,
I've
if
been,
you would,
yes.
please give your name for the record, and forgive me, I know your name, but I didn't recognize your handwriting, so you have 7 minutes.
Melinda Sherwin. Thank you. I'm just making notes about what has transpired here today. There's a woman, a horrible woman, on the court list in Pima County. Her name is Holly Joubert. And she has a PhD and then an LDM. And I said, what the heck is an LDM? She is a legal decision maker for the courts. LDM. I thought you would be interested in that.
Is that an appointed position or what?
I don't know, but it's behind her name. And she's wild. She's a wild woman in the courts there, favored by the courts as a therapist and a court evaluator. And she will. I mean, she's sent. She crosses people's cases and sends them to the wrong people. And she's been arrested for drunk driving.
So I need to understand, ma'am. Is this hearing is for personal experiences? Is what you're testifying to? Please don't talk over me. Is what you're testifying to a personal experience or a professional observation?
Yes, personal.
Okay.
I said I'm on watch in the courts for 34 years.
Okay.
So everything that I tell you is something that I've seen with my eyes or I've heard with my ears. Okay, so let's see. Judges, what happened to judges reading evidence? They have relinquished their judicial authority to these cash-only third-party professionals on court lists. And I'm also an ADA advocate. I've sat next to families or a father or a mother who is being arrested. The court bailiff is walking toward them to put them in handcuffs because they haven't paid Miss Joubert her $5,000 for her services. And so I will say I can't do law, but I can ask the victim that's sitting next to me, ask the judge, are you forcing me into a contract with a person that I don't know, I don't trust, they're not working for me, and I can't afford to pay? And that halts judges because they know, if they've gone to law school, they know that you can't force people into contracts. What they do is a psychological game. It's like they get you to stipulate to a contract. It's when you come back and you're complaining, and they make you believe that if you don't get into that contract with that woman, that you are going to lose your kid. It's a psychological grift in the court, because when they come back and they complain about the evaluator or the other third-party appointee, they are told, isn't that your signature on the contract? Well, yes. So that's one of the issues that happens in the court.
What is your observation about the claim of coercion?
It's absolutely, of course that's it.
If they claim they're coerced into signing this
Yes.
agreement or this stipulation, and they're led to believe that if they don't participate, for example, with the TI, that the court will just assume that they're uncooperative and remove custody.
You're going to lose your kid. Yeah, absolutely. They say it. It's no, it's implied, and and then they call these third party appointees will call their new client, and they will just hound you until you sign the paperwork. You've got to sign the paperwork. You've got to get in my office. Bring money. Blah blah blah, and insurance companies don't employ these people because they're constantly being sued, and insurance companies have standards, and so how do you force a single mother or a dad who has a brain injury, a vet who has a brain injury, to pay $300 a week to have therapy with their kid? It's just it's ridiculous. So I'm for judges who do their jobs. It's like, and there was a lady who said that that the evidence that you bring into the court is ignored. So you have the right to get your evidence on the record. It never happens. One side holds the evidence and presents the evidence, and then one side has one hand up. So in these cases, if it's post-judgment in a divorce, and yes, 90% of people do decide to settle their cases. Dad goes back to work, mom stays home until the kids get older, and then they grow up, the children get older, and mom can go back and upgrade her education, and then she can start working. That's what normal people do. But if you've got a case that has gone into the courts and it goes on for year after year after year, somebody's being abused. And they say this is a bitter divorce case. No, it isn't. It's an abuse case. So also about the lobbyists that come to these legislative meetings. Marty's bill, which was HB 2675, it was called Right to Jury Parent-Child Relationship. So I go to all these court meetings. I went to the task force, the Supreme Court task force on countering disinformation with the idea that Russians were saying bad things about Arizona judges. Yeah. Okay, so
Justice
I will go to
Bergnell
that. I
stood
go
that
to
up.
the family
Melinda,
law.
go ahead and finish up just
Okay,
as quick as
the
you can.
Family Law Improvement Committee, and so Judge McMurdy, who was running the Family Law Committee, said, "I sure hope that right to jury parent-child relationship bill doesn't go through." And so, friends of ours, Elise Kulik and who's the girl with the dress?
Lot of
Lena
girls with
Garcia.
dresses. Oh, okay.
And so she pipes up and she says, "Oh, I spoke to the sponsor of the bill, and we're trying to reason with him because people did not like those jury bill. They didn't like those juries." Well, we used to have, in 2005, I think it was, we did have juries, and 89% of them settled. And that meant that if a judge was going to have a jury looking at him, the cases were settled. But so Leanna goes and talks to the legislator, tries to talk him out of it, and Elise Kulik writes a letter to Nancy Bartow and says, "This is not a good idea. People didn't like that. It's going to be too expensive. We don't have courtrooms.
So that's several legislatures ago when you've invoked Nancy Bartow's name?
It happened with
No, I understand.
Senator Farnsworth. It happened with Leo Biasucci,
I
and it
understand.
happened with Justine.
So we're gonna have to wrap it up here. But
done.
there is, I think, some relief that we learned of earlier today. Article 7 of the Constitution, the $20 limit.
We've tried that.
Well,
We've submitted
new-
that in the courts, and we've said
You-
we're going to do it. We're going to do a jury. If you can't make a decision in 60 days, then we want a jury to decide.
okay, you have a new legislature in place. Now, the question is, will the governor veto House Bill 2256? That will be the measure of whether this state, we already know that the legislature is serious about it. I believe folks have already seen the voting record on that bill, both in the House and the Senate. Now we're going to question whether the governor is serious about reform. Let's see what the veto pen does. All right?
Well, I think that the governor should give us a statute, some sort of a monument.
It's not her business to give us a statute.
Or-
That's our
yeah,
business.
Or maybe you should have one with the names of the dead children who have died as a result of these family law.
Yeah. We'll take that up in the next session. All right, members, any questions? All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, next up, we have Rachel Cardona Barnett. Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you guys.
If you would, give your name for the record and get as close to the microphone as you can. And then, are you representing yourself or somebody else?
I'm representing myself. My name is Rachel Cardona Barnett.
And you have 7 minutes.
I have
So,
7 minutes, yes,
your
sir.
name?
Rachel Cardona Barnett. I'm going to cut some things down for the sake of time. On June 27, 2023, Judge Melissa Zabor issued an emergency warrant without any notice to remove my 4 children from my safe home based upon claims that contradicted even the previous court ruling, the same court ruling, that had already been addressed. Specifically, I was accused of having fled the state of Ohio with my children, that I was in the process of fleeing Arizona again, and a threat to safety to my children. The warrant read that my ex-husband had just located us after searching for 4 years. That was absolutely not true. It was not true, and it should be noted that we had shared custody until DCS investigation suspended his custody, a fact that Judge Melissa Zabor was aware of. Upon the 4 boys being forcibly removed from the home, that was labeled safe by, this is very important, Stephanie Preciado, who was the best interest attorney assigned from this court. She sent out a DCS worker as well as a social worker from her agency who assessed my home and stated that there was no safety concerns and that the children would be in danger if they were taken. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Rachel. Did you say best interest attorney?
Yes, sir. My children were assigned a best interest attorney through Maricopa County Family Court.
Okay. Similar to guardian ad litem?
Yes, sir. With the exception of her actually being a I guess she's actually an attorney. She has her credentials to be an attorney, so she's worked both ends of it. I will say she was wonderful. She was very thorough in her investigation.
Okay. And she certified to the court that the home the children were in was safe?
Yes, sir. Not only that, but she stated that if my children were removed from my home, they would be in danger, and that I was my children's primary attachment. Their removal from my household would result in irreparable damage to the children.
Okay. All right. Please proceed.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The father also admitted to a history of domestic violence. Now, even if Judge Zabor was not aware of the case history because she had just came on, 3 days after the removal of my children, my ex-husband admitted in open court to having falsified all claims with the intention of gaining emergency sole custody of the children. In response to this unexpected and impromptu confession, his attorney, Regina Pangiero, abruptly got up in court and stated that my current husband, just a day prior, had forced his way into her law office and physically assaulted her paralegal, knocking this woman to the ground, throwing papers around, and then running off into the night. This unreported crime was quickly disproven, and after much back and forth with the Arizona Bar Association, this attorney, Regina Pangiero, was asked to remove herself from the case due to her unethical behavior. Even so, I was still placed on supervised visitation for 4 hours a month that I had to pay for. And I was monitored by Kristen Alcott, who was a provider who came here last month, who made the quote, "Judges can rule whatever they want. That's why we have the appellate court." My case is currently in the appellate court, and I'm at the mercy of these judges, hoping that they will rule in our favor and see all that has happened. But I'm also aware of the fact that if they do, my case goes back to Judge Melissa Zabor, who would then be able to make the same decision if she sees fit, and then I will again start and reinitiate the process of appeal.
And you have legal counsel?
I do have legal counsel now. In fact, the counsel that I had who did my appeal, she has been an attorney for 40 years, and she stated that in the 40 years that she has practiced, she has never seen anything as egregious. So much so that she took my appeal pro bono. She said, "I've never seen anything like this." And so she knew that the finances were a factor, and so she did my appeal for free because she said she's never seen anything like this. In addition to this, I was sanctioned and made to pay over $100,000 to my ex-husband. I was told I had to pay that amount of money with no means by which to pay it. I was told I had to pay that simply because the DCS worker who testified stated that the children were abused, but as so many other parents here said today, I'm a safe parent, thus DCS is putting their hands up and walking away.
So let me get this straight.
Yes, sir.
DCS makes what appears to be a false claim.
DCS didn't make the false claim, no, sir.
Okay, who made the claim that the children were abused?
The
You
school,
said DCS threw their hands up.
Yeah,
I'm-
so no,
I'm- you lost
DCS
me.
didn't make the claim. I'm sorry, to clarify. My children went to the school, and the school saw the bruises on my children. They called DCS. An investigation initiated. The DCS worker, Jamila Shakir, who was a very good worker, came out, did her due diligence. She said, yes, these children are abused by the father. However, because this mother is a safe parent, this is a family court matter, DCS is going to step away from it.
Okay. And that is what the court used as reasoning to hit you with a $100,000 payment to the court or to the alleged co-parent?
I was told that the $104,000 that I would pay would be his legal fees for him because I cooperated in a DCS investigation that was ultimately didn't result in anything.
Okay, hold on. The court came after you because you cooperated with DCS,
Yes, sir.
who is engaged in an investigation by a required reporter, a
Yes, sir.
mandatory reporter.
Yes, sir.
And this judge is, what's her name again?
Her name is Judge Melissa Zabor. Currently, my case is before the appellate court, and even now, even though my case is in the appellate court, she continues to make rulings on behalf of my case. Next month, I'm supposed to go to court because my ex-husband has now requested that I have no access to my children's medical records, and she's going to hear that.
Okay, in your divorce decree,
Yes, sir. No, absolutely. And just to clarify, my divorce took place in Ohio, our home state, at which time my ex-husband voluntarily gave me full custody of the children in exchange for waiving child support, giving him my home and all access and any finances I had. In essence, it's sad to say, I gave up everything and I bought my children's freedom.
okay, is there a therapeutic interventionist involved in this equation?
And it's funny you asked, yes, sir. In my case, Kristen Alcott acted at one point as that as well. She served multi-purposes in my case. She was a transportation agent, at which time there was a 1-hour recording of my children and her in which they were telling her they were fearful of their death. Their father was going to one day kill them. They went into detail about all the abuse that they had experienced, and she stated, not knowing, I presume that she was being recorded, later on to the court that my children adored their father, that they should be removed from me, and that I was the problem, that they never, ever reported any abuse.
Who was Kristen Alcott working under?
Her-
It's already been established that she's not degreed and that she's not enrolled in a course of study.
She was working under herself.
So she wasn't working for a psychologist, psychiatrist, somebody with a master's degree, a PhD, not essentially a licensed practitioner. So she was working without a license?
She was working without a license. I am aware that she was already connected to these people she spoke about last month. However, for my case, when she was initially brought on, she was to monitor her father per DCS, saying that he couldn't be alone with the children. So the family court named her and said, well, if this is what we're going to do, we want to pick somebody. We don't want DCS to be involved. And they picked Kristen Alcott. So she monitored him. I had to give her money to monitor him with my children. Thereafter, she was rehired as a transportation agent, and she was to transport my children directly to the father because they were stating that I did not want the children to go. So I had to remove myself, which I did, and I had a transportation agent, and she was to transport my children directly to the father because they were stating that I did not want the children to go. So I had to remove myself, which I did, and I had to pay her to transport my children, during which that recording took place. At some point, she was then hired by the court to monitor my social media, and she began presenting to the court. I guess she made a secret account and presented my social media, just showing that I was speaking against the family court, that I was exposing people in the family court, at which point my children were taken. And I was told by the judge, even after the father of the children admitted he lied about everything, that I was a danger. When I asked for clarification, how am I a danger? They said, you're a danger to the family court system. And this is after I was elected as a school. I'm currently a school board member, and over the state of Arizona, I'm the president of the Black Alliance. So anybody whose children attend school in the state of Arizona, I'm able to make decisions on behalf of your children. I am not able to make any decisions on behalf of my children. I did not know where my children went to school, and I was not listed as their mother on their paperwork per Melissa Zabor.
I bet they do see you as a threat, ma'am. I
Mr.
bet they do.
Mr. Chair, I have a
Representative Kushner.
request that's pertinent to what she's talking about. So you shared those with me, the transcripts, really quickly, because I want to get this on the record just to make a point of what the transcripts include of the recorded call. At one point, one of your children says, but these judges aren't God. And Kristen Alcott says, oh, I'd have to disagree with you.
That is
So my request is, are you okay with me sharing that, or do you want to, I want you to, whatever we can get on the record, I think is better.
I would very much like for it to be shared. At this point, I still do not have access to my children except every other weekend. I have no access to them, so I would like everything to be shared, because at this point they've put myself and many other parents in a unique position because our backs are against the wall. You took everything that we had. We have nothing to fight for. And when you back somebody into a wall, then you're going to see what's really going on.
All right, if you could provide us with a transcript of that recording, or the recording itself, we'll see to it that it's transcribed and we get the recording back to you, okay?
Yes, sir. It's been submitted. Thank you.
So are you currently, I'd like to go back to, so you're telling me the court appointed Alcott, not a TI, not a psychiatrist, not a psychologist, not a licensed professional. The court engaged somebody who not only doesn't have a degree, is not engaged a course of study, to act as though they are?
Yes, sir. And what's unique about that is that the person who was qualified, which was the best interest attorney, her testimony, her entire report that was very well written, very detailed. Even she brought people on, she brought a social worker on because she said, that's not my area of expertise and I want this to be completely clean. All of what she presented, all of her evidence, everything was discounted. My children were taken because Kristen Alcott said, simply.
Okay. Are you finished, ma'am?
I'm finished.
All right. Members, any questions? Representative, please.
Okay, thank you. Rachel, thank you. I just have a question here, and I'm not exactly understanding why this wasn't taken into consideration. You said that your ex-husband confessed in court, but then his attorney kind of jumped up and tried to do like a diversion factor? Is that what I'm understanding? And was that confession recorded at all or been utilized at all in being able to determine the custody?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So what happened was they took what this attorney, Regina Pangero, said at face value. There was nothing requested. Thankfully, the day prior when my husband went to her office to drop off the jump drive after my children had been taken, because I was representing myself, I had to present evidence. I told my husband, I said, I have a weird feeling, go ahead and press record. He never entered the office. So I was able to use that recording and submit it to the Bar Association with a complaint to say this woman lied and falsified this assault that took place. Now, what's odd about that was months prior to that, which was factual and which the court is aware of, my ex-husband chased me into my children's school building and was found by the Glendale police waiting for me in the parking lot of a school with a loaded gun to kill me.
Oh, boy, okay. But also, Mr. Chair, just to follow up.
Yeah,
But you
ahead.
did say your ex-husband did confess in court.
He did, yes, ma'am. He confessed in court. He said, so what happened was that he was, I was representing myself, and I had the documentation from the original Ohio decree, and that explicitly gave me directive and gave me permission to take the 4 children out of the state of Ohio to Arizona. That he was aware of the fact that we had been sharing the children when he followed me here and the children, that until DCS stepped in and said, stop exchanging the kids, he was getting the children every other week. So he admitted to that. So I said, I got him to confess. I said, so you're saying that this is your signature? Yes, it's my signature. So you're saying that when you got this warrant, what you swore to was false. Yeah, who cares? I can do what I want.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Members, any further questions?
Thank you. Could I give this to someone?
Yes, thank you, Rachel. If
Thank
you
you.
would, hand that to this lady over here. All right, next we have, by the way, folks, we're at 3:10, so we're probably going to have space for about 5 more people before we call an end to this hearing. There will be 3 more. I apologize if we can't get you in. We knew that we'd have a lot of people here, but we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity, a fair opportunity, between 7 and 10 minutes to speak, okay? Next up, we have Jacqueline Fashar Curran. Jacqueline, are you in the room? Okay, you have 7 minutes. You're on the clock. If you would please give your name, and if you're representing somebody other than yourself, identify them.
My name is Jacqueline Fasher Curran. I am representing myself and everyone else who can't be here. You know, this problem is worldwide, and I've spent the last 1.5 years researching it. January 31st, 2024, DCS came to my house because my daughter had some bruises.
Jacqueline, can you get as close to the microphone as you can?
Can you hear me now?
Much better, thank you.
Okay. January 31st, 2024, DCS came to my house because my daughter had some bruises that I could not explain. And to this day, it has been 467 days. I do not know how my daughter got those bruises. I agreed to a dependency alternative program. In the beginning, it was successful. I got my mental health stable, was working on enrolling in college. Everything was going great. May 2024, the woman who has third-party rights started telling me, 1, that I was never going to get my daughter back, and that 2, she was her new mom. The last time I got to see my daughter was June 26, 2024. The woman said to me under no circumstances was she going to allow me visitation, which was against the court-ordered visitation schedule. June 27, 2024, I hired my current attorney. We filed contempt, but I still did not get to see my daughter for 4 months. October 21st, we had trial. This woman came with absolutely no proof to any of her claims that I had supposedly threatened her and her husband. As far as I know, in regards to the burden of proof, we both have the burden of proof. Where I submitted documents that I had completed anger management, am in counseling, on medication, and text messages from the other woman telling me, no, I will not let you see your daughter. And this other woman submitted a journal entry as evidence. Judge McCoy ruled that this woman acted in good faith and was not in contempt. Very shortly after that trial, visits stopped again. I think I had seen my daughter a total of twice until we had to go back into court. And my attorney again filed for another contempt. My case was then reassigned to Honorable Judge Demke. We had an evidentiary hearing March 4th, where again this woman had absolutely no proof of anything. She submitted evidence that got striked because she missed a deadline. And so she had no proof of anything, nothing. She walked in there, sat down and said, oh, she did this, that, and the other, with no proof of it. And where was I? And then, but she had filed, this is the second time she's done this, filed for severance, claiming that I abandoned my daughter when she will not let me see my child. Physically told me, no, I will not let you see your child. Months down the line of me having my visit supervisor, my attorney, any legal professional, they text her and say, hey, you know you need to follow a court order, right? I didn't get to see my child, and she said that I abandoned her. So now I have a severance trial coming up. It's going to be in 18 days. This severance got dismissed. And then we got a new judge, so I got filed again. Now we're going through a severance trial. You know? I don't know how that happens, but you know what? That's what happened in my case. Now, I also wrote a research paper in college on parental alienation, and I had copies hopefully given to you guys. You know, this is something I've been working on for the last year and a half.
Okay. Jacqueline, if you'd like to give whatever papers you have to Zach here. Oh, okay. All right, very good.
I know that, you know, I made mistakes as a mother. I'm sure all mothers have. And I needed to get my mental health configured and stable. But now that I have that, I don't think that what's happening to me in family court right now is justifiable.
Okay, Jacqueline, who's your daughter with now?
She's with, should I say her name or?
Well, let me reframe that question. Is your daughter with
Family? No.
family?
No.
Is your daughter with a
Friend? No. I met this
Okay.
woman at church, and I dialed her number by accident when DCS was at my house, and she came to my house, and I looked at her, I was like, where do I know you from? And she's like, you know me from church. There you go, I know her from church. Okay, she might be a safe person. You know, I need my daughter to be with a safe person.
So is this a foster parent
No.
situation?
No.
DCS
has even told me they would not give her a foster license.
Okay, so they wouldn't give her a foster license.
If she applied for it right now, they would not. Because of DCS is now involved,
Okay.
and they don't agree with what she's doing either. The parental alienation is so severe, you should hear the things coming out of my 5-year-old child's mouth. The things she's saying. That no 5-year-old child should know. You know, and someone had called DCS, and so me having my parental rights, DCS called me. I had to go and have an interview. So I willingly obliged, and I sat in their office for 3 hours. And the investigator told me that this is getting dragged on, this isn't right, and it's time my daughter comes home. But unfortunately, because she filed for severance, we're going to see what happens in court.
Members, any questions for Jacqueline? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Thank you. I do have one question, Chair. Thank you for your testimony. I do have one question. My question to you, and your experience that you're talking about regarding your child, is this within juvenile court or
Family
is
court.
it in family
No,
court?
this is in family court.
Okay. So you have experience with the court advocates,
Guardian
advisors.
Light Mojave Advocates, DCS, yeah. Right now, I'm very well known in the family court in Mojave County.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Amber Snodgrass. Amber, if you would, please give your name for the record and who you represent, if it's somebody other than yourself, and you have 7 minutes. Get as close to the microphone as you can.
Sorry, you got to tell all of us that. My name's Amber Snodgrass. I'm representing myself. I'm a mother of 3. My older 2 kids are adults now, but my youngest is 9. I've been a radiology tech for 18 years. I taught Yavapai College radiology program for 5 years. Next month, I will have been involved in Arizona Family Court for 10 years. I filed for divorce for my first order of protection when I was 8 months pregnant with my youngest daughter. There was ongoing domestic violence. I suspect I'll be in family court for 8 more years, which is why I'm coming forward, even with the fear of retaliation. I do have an open case and I'm awaiting another trial. I have over 600 documents filed in my docket. We have had 5 final trials, most of them lasting 1 to 2 days. In the past 2 years, we have around 190 documents filed, 90 filings from him, where he continually makes false accusations against me and every party to our case, using the family court to harass me and cause further trauma. 32 orders from the court during that same time frame and around 58 filings from my attorney, many of which were caused by having to respond to his filings. I can provide a letter with a lot more detail later. I did have to shorten it. It's 10 years of information, so.
I invite you to do that too.
Okay, thank you. So I came up with some things that I've come across in my time that I've found that really need to be changed. I'm one of the lucky parents. I was able to keep my daughter under supervised visitation with her father for 7 years. I do have majority custody, and I have sole legal decision making. With 8 more years to go, I'm terrified that that's going to change. So hence the reason for wanting to get some change made in our laws. With the documents that I've claimed, let you know that have been filed, I think the vexatious litigation law needs to be updated. I think it needs to include some verbiage about family court. Family court doesn't really know about it a lot, I don't think. With almost 200 documents in my case in 2 years, it's been nonstop. He was self-represented the majority of that time. The biggest thing in my case that scares me for the general public is that you've heard a lot about supervision, supervisors for parents. My ex-husband was supervised for 7 years. During that time, he started a supervision company in Maricopa County and Yavapai County, where I was located. And he proceeded to work as a supervisor. He still claims that he's doing that work to everyone. He claimed that Maricopa County had given him referrals from the judicial office when they were handing out the rosters at that time. He claimed that he was on that. Unofficially, I do know of at least one parent that received his name from a court when they were looking for a supervisor. He
I'm
had
sorry, forgive me for interrupting you. Do you know whether the court does a background investigation on individuals that they appoint for such a position?
I don't believe they do. They would have been able to access our court records if they did, I would imagine.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
something.
no, I don't believe
I
that they
don't know
do.
is a good answer.
Yeah.
We'll
Sorry.
make sure that we follow up on that and see if there is a process for background investigations for these individuals. Please proceed.
In my time when I found out that he was, I actually started to research all of that because it was terrifying to me that he was supervising people in these situations. And I found no laws governing supervisors. I found no disqualifiers. I found no qualifiers. I found nothing that said what they're allowed to do and not do. I asked for clarification from the judge when his father was supervising. He let him walk around a 2-acre area with our infant baby. And I asked the judge to please let him know what supervision entails. And she said, people know what supervision entails, and didn't tell him anything. So I think there needs to be really detailed information on what supervision means and who's allowed to do it, whether it's a professional or a non-professional. The only place that I found information was California. They have non-professionals and professionals, and they do have some rules and a guidebook and stuff like that that helps. I'm going to look through other states and see what else I can find to come up with. But another thing is that I'm a member of the Arizona Address Confidentiality Program. I didn't find out about that until I'd been in family court for years. Family court gave they filed a document with my address on it when it was protected before I was in the ACP program. So I found out about it and I joined it. I moved. He hired a private investigator, my ex-husband, to find me, and then I was told there's no law against them looking. There's only a law that they get in trouble if they find it. So there was nothing to hold him responsible. He didn't do it more than once, so it wasn't harassment. I will say that I had the same judge in Yavapai County for 6 years, and it was awful. He did not treat me respectfully. He is known for not liking women and for treating us with disdain when we're in the courtroom. He just talks down to you. There were a lot of things that went wrong in my case there that caused me to, when in 2022 with my fourth trial with him, I decided to move to Maricopa County to escape because I had no other way to get away from him.
And the name of that judge?
That's Goldstein, Commissioner Goldstein.
Okay.
And many women that I confer with have had very similar stories with him.
Okay.
I had a
You
whole
just have
thing I
about
was
10
going to read.
seconds left.
Oh, no. Well, I'll send it all to you guys.
Well,
There's
just
a
put a
whole
bow
lot.
on it because whatever you've got there that you haven't been able to get to, if you will give that to Elena, we'll see to it that it's in the materials for the report.
Okay, and then I'll send over a more detailed information. I tried to do the 5-minute thing and
Okay.
timed myself. Okay, well, I guess I'll read the last part. The safety of children should not hinge on luck of the draw on which judge you get, financial resources, or judicial assignments. I'm always worried going back into another trial. Parental alienation claims cause healthy moms to lose their children and dads. My ex and his attorney try to claim it regularly. My daughter has been resistant to going to some visits and vocal about not wanting to go for long visits. Family court has drained me emotionally and financially. My recent anxiety, born of years of trauma and legal retaliation, is now being weaponized against me in filings. My daughter deserves better. Until judges face true oversight and accountability, protective parents and vulnerable children will continue to suffer. In what world should we constantly try to award more parenting time to a person that has proven he is volatile, angry, unstable, and will be emotionally damaging to a child? Our statutes need to prioritize the physical, mental, and emotional safety and well-being of our children over everything else.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, any questions?
Mr. Chair, really quickly, I would like to get your contact information. So you have some really good ideas for legislation. So as we start to work on that, I don't want to want that to get lost.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up, Julie Anderson Holburn. All right, Julie, if you will, please give your name for the record and who you're representing, if it's someone other than yourself, and get as close to the microphone as you can. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you.
That'll go up too, by the way. A little switch to your right.
Oh, I think it's okay.
Okay.
Is this close enough? Can you hear me?
If you could get a little closer to the microphone.
Closer. Okay, closer. Good afternoon, Chair, Co-Chair, and committee members. Thank you for holding this important multi-part hearing series on family court. I come before you as a victim of the Phoenix, Arizona Family Court and the Orange County Family Court of California. I took my pain and turned it into purpose by first being an advocate and speaking up at the state capitol in California on Peaky's Law and other legislation. When I saw I wasn't having a big enough impact, I apprenticed with some reporters at the Sacramento Observer, and I became a national reporting journalist on Family Court about 2 years ago. I published nationally on Newsbreak, on Substack, and I cross-publish on other platforms like the Family Court Circus, and my work has been featured and shared by National Safe Parents and the Center for Judicial Excellence. I want to let you know that in my investigative work, I've had parents reach out for me all across the nation and the world. And this is, in fact, a national crisis. Our family court system, America's family court system, sorry, I'm trying to read from my text. It's small. I've had people and parents reach out from all across the nation and the world, and this is in fact a national crisis. Our family court system, America's family court system, and who plays a part in this? It's the judges, it's the lawyers, it's the minors counsel, the therapist, the evaluators, the litany of other little professional names that they come up with, including family court services mediators, CCI investigators. But it isn't just family court. It's also a problem that's impacted by CPS. Law enforcement, and the problem with those two agencies is that they work with family court, and the majority of CPS social workers are as corrupt or as lacking in education, as you've heard from many other people here today. And they're doing this, and they're assessing child abuse and domestic violence and coercive control and physical abuse and child sexual abuse and sexual abuse and rape. And none of them have the specialties for it. Not the judges, not the lawyers, not the minors counsel, not the therapists. And that could be said the same for law enforcement, including the DAs who don't prosecute domestic violence and child abuse. And I have heard from hundreds of parents, more than hundreds of parents. DAs do not prosecute child abuse and domestic violence cases because they cost more. They take more time. They're not like little drug charge deals where they have a plea deal and they make their little pay points on both sides. And a lot of people don't know that. So we don't have that happening. Then we have CPS who piggybacks to support the law enforcement. And then we have judges, and they all have relationships and they all hang out together, which is a problem. It's a huge problem. So how do we fix this problem? We immediately invoke denying immunity, judicial immunity. We put cameras in courts, audio and video. We make every court hearing available in person and remotely to the public, with exception to those narrowly tailored moments where they're discussing something about a minor. We do away with transcripts that cost thousands of dollars, and we make those audio-video recordings available to the parties for a nominal fee. We hold every mandated reporter accountable. We get rid of this idea of this quasi-judicial immunity because these people are not protecting children, they're doing the exact opposite. I just want to reiterate, the problem is the judges, the lawyers, the minors counsel, the custody evaluators, the therapists, the reunification experts, the transporters, the reintegration therapists, the COBIs, the TIs. So, like I said, I'm here as a parent and a victim of Phoenix, Arizona Family Court and Orange County Family Court. I submitted my 38-page grievance through my DV advocate. You all got a copy of it. I think you specifically, Representative Fink asked for it specifically in the email chain. My first 3 children from my first marriage were subject to Dr. Lavitt. That's who Kristen Alcott came from and was his assistant. Caused horror to my children, like significant horror. And now some of that stuff transferred over to Orange County, and it was the same type of thing that I experienced in Arizona in Orange County. And every single one of these parents
I'm sorry. So let's go back to who Kristen Alcott was working under. That was who?
Dr. Lavitt.
Lavis?
Lavitt,
Lavitt, okay.
yes. So my children were subject to that man in 1999. I subsequently moved to California and remarried, and we then divorced, and I became subject to the horror in Orange County Family Court. Lucy, who you heard speak earlier, was one of the parents after I became an investigative reporter that I investigated her case, and a litany of other parents. She mentioned Jessica Sinclair, who was a licensed marriage and family therapist who went around for almost 15 years claiming to about to be getting her PhD when she had been disenrolled from the program since 2011. And so my investigative work has uncovered a lot of corruption in Orange County. I've written on Madeline and Sophia's case here in Arizona. I've written on Grace and Gwen's case out of Chicago. I've written on Adam Rocks is his hashtag, and Elena is his mother out of Florida. And I have so many people emailing me on a daily basis and reaching out to me in my DMs of all my different social media platforms since becoming an investigative reporter. I can't keep up with it. So this is not isolated. These stories are real. What is happening is rampant, and the only way to really make a difference is to end immunity for the minors' councils, for the lawyers, for the judges, and for the state bars, individual state bars, to start investigating family court attorneys and minors' councils. And thank you for letting me speak. Thank you for holding this. So many people are so grateful that you've done this, as am I. And thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony.
I have a quick question, Mr. Chair. So since you've experienced this in both California and Arizona, something that I heard, Rachel was talking about it earlier in her testimony, how it seems like some of these people are actually, you mentioned a lot of roles, like there are roles to play in this, that they're actually swapping their roles to. How much of that is going on where one person is, say, taking on a different role depending on the case? You know, they might be a TI on one, the guardian, or not the guardian ad litem, the counsel for the child on another. Do you see that frequently, and do you see that since you're involved in a lot of different states? Is that kind of the same no matter where you're at?
It is, and what I see is there are typically some court-approved or preferred providers, and one of them gets on, and then they get their other colleagues in on a different capacity, like a special master, a TI, a monitored visitation provider, and that's another issue, the monitored visitation provider. Well, California has like a rule book. It's really not, there's really no oversight. And I know these things because I have a lot of sources who've come forward to me, and it is rampant, and it is across all the different states, and why it is such a big problem. And cameras in court would make a huge difference. If there was exposure to what is happening in these courtrooms, and parents are threatened. They're threatened by judges, they're threatened by their own attorneys. Their own attorneys tell them not to go to the media, or else I'll sub off your case. There's just been this blanket, unspoken gag order, don't go to the media, don't talk about it. And what's happening is nothing short of horror in these family courts.
To that point, honestly, if that's happening with the roles, there's a huge ethical problem, in my opinion. But I will tell you, I have sat down with local media. Now, the media is not very nice to me most of the time. I don't talk to them very often. When it comes to family court stuff, we are all on the same page. And I sat down for an interview with one of the stations. I won't throw him under the bus. He was going to air it, and he got threatened not to.
That is
just so you know.
I will tell you from my investigative work and all my interviews and everything I have done, I have been told by high-level administrative positioned people at newspapers in Orange County and LA that they are not allowed to report on family court. They were given that directive that you are not to report on family court. That's why I stepped over into doing this, because big mainstream reporters for papers or media will not report on this. They want to say, oh, it's a he said, she said. It is not. Like you heard from the therapist, the mom turned therapist, I forget her name, I apologize, Ballard, I think. You know, it's only 4% of cases, you know, divorce cases that end up in family court. And it's not because they're high conflict, it's because it's a contested custody case involving abuse, child abuse, domestic violence, child sexual abuse. That's what's going into family court. And they are keeping a lid on the child abuse. They don't want it coming out. DAs don't want to prosecute it because it costs money. And the media blackout is across the nation and the world for that matter. I mean, I have people reach out from the UK, same type of thing. So people need to be told, like, this needs to be reported on. We need cameras in courts to expose it, first of all. And we need to do away with immunity for everybody involved. Because why are we protecting them when we know that they're hurting children? And we know CPS's record. We've seen the news all across the nation, these horrible settlements. And we don't hear about it until the settlement comes out because they keep it hush-hush. It's time for an overhaul. I appreciate you
That's the point
listening.
of this committee.
Very appreciative of that. Thank you
All right.
very much for having me and for holding this.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank
Okay, next we have, let's see, we're looking at, we had 20 minutes. If we're really good, we can fit 4 people in. So, Troy James Odell. Troy, can you do it in 6 minutes?
I'd be crunching it, but I can try, sir.
Crush it. All right, please give your name, who you're representing, and if you want, elevate the platform a little bit to get the microphone a little bit closer. All right, I'll tell you what, I don't want to put pressure on you. Take as much time as you want, up to 7 minutes.
Okay. Thanks, Chairman.
All right.
So my name's Troy James Odell. I'm representing myself today and my son. His name's Liam Allen James Odell. He turns 10 years old on May 29th of this year. Unfortunately, I can bank on not being there for his 10th birthday because of what I'm about to share with you today. On 12/27/2023, I was served unknowingly a restraining order granted by Judge Demke of Mojave County with my son on the restraining order while I had full custody of my son. When I went back and listened to this recording, I was shocked to discover that the judge even admitted that he legally couldn't do that because I had full custody and she had to go through the court custody battle thing. And she broke down and started crying and said, well, what do I do? And the judge said, and she told the judge that I had been doing meth, which was a lie. And then the judge said, well, I'll do it this one time since he's doing meth, and granted it. That's what I discovered when I went back and listened to the recording. So carrying on.
I'm sorry, when you say you listened to the recording, it was the recording of the court proceeding or what?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
So I challenged the restraining order on January 10th of 2023. The judge upheld the restraining order, but dismissed it to my son. But when I received the papers that day, the court orders still said in black and white that my son was to remain a protected person. So I went on to believe that I could not talk to or see my son. And while I went on to believe that, on January 17th of 2023, I was served an emergency custody order. That forced me to, from my position that I was in, I was already homeless when I got that order because of the restraining order kicking me out of my house. So I had to take out a $5,000 loan to hire an attorney. When I hired an attorney, he advised me to take a hair follicle test, which I did immediately. When the court received the hair follicle test, nothing happened. Even though she swore under oath that was the truth, I guess the oath doesn't mean anything anymore.
So I presume the hair follicle test came back negative for drug use,
Yes, sir.
and the court accepted
They
the report but took no action.
they acknowledged that the results were negative across the board,
Okay.
but yet they didn't dismiss the case or make any other acknowledgments of it. They just acknowledged it. That was it. So even though I've already proven within 2 weeks of this transpiring that she's lied, it still goes on. DCS gets a hold of me and they say, well, I get a letter in the mail from DCS saying that based on their investigation, there's no substantial evidence of any neglect or abuse, so the case was thrown out by them. So me and my lawyer at the case management on 2/14/24, we were going over the hair follicle results with the judge, and we were going over the fact that DCS blatantly stated that there was no neglect or abuse found through their investigation, and they threw out their case. Even though that was brought to the judge's attention, she still set another hearing and so on and so forth, dragging this out.
I'm sorry, when you said she, you've changed judges?
So the restraining order was a guy, Demke, and the person with the emergency custody orders was Judge Megan McCoy.
Also Mojave County?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So I managed to get a lawyer, get my own apartment. I had to get a new job because of rumors that were spread around town about me being on meth, and my boss believed it. So I got a new job. I actually started my own business, which I still have to this day.
So just a minute. Did you have access to the report to show your old boss this is fallacious?
I did, but he wanted me to take another drug test, and it just, there was no point in me taking another drug test if I've already taken a hair follicle. Hair follicles go back 90 days, and...
So instead you saw it as an opportunity for change?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Good
if
on
they're
you,
not
man.
going to accept me, if they're going to let me go, I started there in 2020. This is in 2024.
Yeah.
4 years of being a great employee, outstanding employee.
All right.
And they just let me go like that.
What's your new business?
Johnson Services and Repair. I do air conditioning and refrigeration and automobile repairs and stuff like that.
All right.
So the judge ended up spanning it out, and she set a trial for 2.5 hours, according to the court minute entries, on 6/24/24. In the meantime, my lawyer told me on the phone that the judge is a BITCH and he will not go to trial. So there went $5,000 out the window. I fired him because he's told me that, and I recorded it too.
Okay, hold on. You hired the attorney. The attorney says, I'm not going to trial in front of this judge.
Correct.
And quits.
Correct.
Did you get your money back?
No,
I think you should probably speak to the bar.
I did. They said they wished that there was more that they could do, and they gave him like a slap on the wrist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So I ended up litigating this case by myself with no prior experience as an attorney.
You got about a minute, man.
Okay. I'm going to skip to the trial. Several witnesses and I arrived at 9 o'clock at an empty hall. The trial was set for 9:30. As we anxiously awaited the court proceedings, my grandma and her niece show up, along with the best interest attorney, Shannon Glau, who I've never met in person. I actually thought that she was her attorney because she sat with her the entire time in the hallway and was coaching her on what to do. When the court doors opened, the people inside rushed out. One woman looked me dead in the eyes and she said, "Good luck, that judge is a BITCH." I smiled politely at her and walked into the courtroom like I owned the place, looking sharp in a Hawaiian dress shirt, almost as if I was a CIA agent doing a drug bust in Cuba. Shannon Glau, the best interest attorney, sat with my grandma to the right. At this point, I'm nervous, thinking she had gotten a lawyer to come to find out, she's the BIA. Finally introduced herself minutes before the judge walked out at 10:27. I quickly made the judge aware that it was making me uncomfortable that Miss Glau was sitting so close to my grandma as if she was representing her. That was not really a concern, and the trial proceeded. It doesn't say when my grandma was sworn in, but by my best memory, I can testify she verbally spoke for less than 5 minutes. She got one paragraph out, 2 would be pushing it, and that was her entire case, aside her one witness, which was her niece. In cross-examination, I asked her niece if she ever told her 13-year-old daughter if she would buy her drugs for beating her then 8-year-old daughter up while screaming this at the top of her lungs, and she said no, under oath, in cross-examination in this trial. Then, when it was my turn, I played a recording of said niece saying just that, screaming that loud and clear at the top of her lungs at her 8-year-old, telling her 13-year-old daughter if she beats up her 8-year-old daughter, she'll buy her a pre-rolled marijuana joint. So now, her only witness she called to testify against me has purged herself in front of the judge. Then I had asked my grandma point blank if she ever witnessed me for a period of time since my child was born being strung out on drugs or alcohol, and her answer was no. There was never a time when she witnessed me strung out on drugs or alcohol, but because I worked so much, I shouldn't have my child.
Okay, Troy, we're going to have to wrap it up, man. What's the name of the attorney that fired you as a client?
The one that I fired?
Well, they fired you. You paid him $5,000 and
Right.
you said, I'm not going into court. They fired you.
His name's Keith Knuckle.
Okay. All right, members, any questions for Mr. Rodell? All right. I wish we had more time, but thank you for your story.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks, Chairman.
All right. All right, next up, we have Carrie Killebrew. Carrie, are you still in the room? All right. You got 7 minutes, Carrie. Sorry to be so restrictive, but we're coming up on a time limit. You can hit that switch to your right so that you don't look like Kilroy. You old ones, or you younger ones won't get that one. Okay, there you go. So get as close to the microphone as you can, and please give your name and who you represent if it's somebody other than yourself.
Okay, my name is Carrie Killebrew. I'm representing myself. My testimony comes from a point of view as a daughter and an older sister to my brother and sister. My dad has had sole custody of me since I was 5 years old up until 18. Now, as an adult, we run a business together and have a very good relationship. My dad and former stepmom were married for 6 years and had 2 kids, my loving younger siblings. During their 6 years of marriage, I experienced my own mental abuse from my stepmom. At the age of 9, she would tell me that my dad was a narcissist and was not capable of loving me or anyone else. She would try and turn me against him and try to manipulate me by constantly blaming my dad for any issues in the home, and she would punish me behind my dad's back for sticking up for him or myself. This lasted up until I was 15 when they divorced. Thankfully, growing up with my dad alone for the first 9 years and knowing who he truly was, I was able to see through the lies and manipulation. Since their divorce in 2015, my former stepmom has attempted to take my siblings away from my dad at least 5 times. Each time, she files and creates false narratives and states many false accusations with no proof. My former stepmom is a court-appointed forensic therapeutic supervisor who had previously testified at this last hearing that judges may order whatever they would like. When my dad asked for...
Time out.
Yes.
The individual at the very end of the last hearing?
Yes, sir. I didn't know if I was allowed to say names. She is a
Well, her
court-appointed...
name's been thrown around here all day long,
Okay.
so... Feel free, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, so Kristen Alcott was my former stepmom.
Okay.
Okay. So the one that said, judges may order whatever they would like. When my dad asked for a change of venue given her role in Maricopa County Family Court and conflict of interest, my dad was ordered to pay almost $2,500 to her attorneys for even asking, and of course his motion was denied.
And the judge's name was?
William Wingard.
I'm sorry?
William Wingard?
Okay.
My dad has never had money for a lawyer. Any lawyer he has had has been short-lived and been paid for by loans, friends, or family, including myself. Yet, since his ex-wife, Kristen, works for the family court and works closely with the judges, he has been ordered to pay over $35,000 in her attorney fees. During his last court hearing in January of 2025, he presented clear and convincing evidence and facts about the quarters that she had broke and the mental abuse she was implementing on my siblings. Very clear evidence. I had the opportunity to testify for my dad, and so did Miss Alcott's father. He also testified in favor of my dad. In the court order put out in March by Judge William Wingard, he did not acknowledge a single piece of evidence that my dad presented, nor did he acknowledge either mine or Steve Alcott's testimony. Instead, almost the entirety of the order was based off of the court-appointed therapist Carol Mellon's opinion. This therapist had never met my father or my siblings. She admitted to only reviewing the mother's evidence and her side of the story, and she was paid by Miss Alcott to testify in her favor. My former stepmom has testified publicly about how much her profession can make in the family court. If I remember correctly, it was around $150 to $400 an hour. Many people testified about how much money they have been ordered to pay her and others in the same profession. Despite this, and despite my dad's income proof showing he makes under $50,000 a year, he has been ordered to pay her $1,500 a month in child support, which they know that he does not have. The judge ignored the fact that she has reported my dad to CPS 5 times with no evidence and all reports coming back clear. I myself have been interviewed by them multiple times, even as an adult. They keep allowing her to report him with no evidence. It has been 3 times just in the last 5 years. Years ago, before she worked for the courts, a judge placed an order stating that mother keeps making the same allegations with no evidence. How is this not harassment? At the end of my dad's last hearing, the judges said his goodbye to my former stepmom's lawyers by saying, "It was good seeing you guys." The bias in family court is clear. No matter how hard he fights, every time he tries to stand up for himself and my siblings, he gets punished by the system. The judge has ignored my 13-year-old brother's pleas to be with our father, yet told my 14-year-old sister she can pick where she lives, which is essentially what my dad wanted for both of my siblings, for their wishes to be heard and acted upon. My brother has pleaded and expressed his fear of mental abuse from his mom, with it all being ignored, even after his mother had him arrested, causing him to spend a night in juvie. During this whole situation, my relationship with my younger sister has been severely damaged. We used to be best friends, and she came to me about everything and confided in me with really personal issues she had. We would have weekly sleepovers at my house. We hung out daily, and now I am blocked from her phone and have not seen her in almost a year, with no reason given. She has also not spoken to our 13-year-old brother since last year. I am proof that my dad is a good father. If he wasn't, I wouldn't be here as an adult. As a 25-year-old who is doing my best to fight for my siblings and my dad, my heart hurts for him and my siblings who have been ripped away from him solely to protect Miss Alcott's image in the court system. Something needs to change. The court-appointed officials need to be held accountable. Judges need repercussions. Parents who cannot afford lawyers need more access to legal help. You get arrested and you get a free lawyer, but someone tries to take your kids and you're on your own. The system is flawed and we need to fight for a change.
Thank you, young lady. I appreciate you coming. I have a couple questions. I'm sure some of the members might.
Okay.
So did Kristen Alcott act, or did she play a role in counseling for you during the period of time that all of this was going on?
Counseling for me specifically, no.
Okay. Did she have any part of any forensically informed interview of you?
No, I think she has treaded lightly to not draw too much attention to the case, knowing her position, and not to make the corruption very obvious.
Members, any questions for this young lady?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have it to that point. As far as you're concerned, has your stepmom ever claimed to be a forensic therapist or act in that capacity?
Yes, she has.
Thank you.
Okay, let's explore that for just a moment.
Okay.
Who did she represent that level of expertise to?
Her business name is Family First Forensic Consultants, and online publicly she claims to be a forensic therapist and, well, a therapeutic supervisor.
Mr. Chair?
Okay. Representative?
And so your stepmom, has she, I mean, she says she has this forensic business. Is she trained? Does she have any degrees or anything like that that would substantiate that position?
I don't directly communicate with her for obvious reasons, but to my knowledge, no. I know that she definitely doesn't have experience in adolescence specifically. And I know that she said she was working on her master's, but from what I've been told, she is not currently in school.
Okay.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay. Carrie, is Kyle your brother by chance? I noticed-
Kyle is my dad.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we're out of time. Kyle, would you stand up for a second? Just, okay. It's 4 o'clock, and we're done at 4 o'clock. However, thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony, ma'am.
Thank you.
And it's valuable.
Thank
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we will have another hearing, in fact, 3 more hearings. This is a pretty deep subject. As you can all see around the room, there's a community of interest here that has some pretty significant concerns. The next meeting will rely on a quorum call, but look for that to happen in June, hopefully early June, so that we can take a break for some of the hot months. But don't hold me to that, okay? But we will indeed have 3 more hearings. I'm not yet decided whether we will put out an interim report for the ad hoc committee or if we're going to wait until we're completely done. But I think that at least a few of my colleagues will agree. We've heard some pretty disturbing stuff today and in the last hearing. I encourage you, if you did not get to testify, and by the way, I got a stack of about 30 of you that wanted to testify, but we just didn't have time. Please come back. We'll do everything we can to get you in. Your cards will be saved for the next hearing so that you get priority to testify, okay? All right, with that, we are adjourned.